Hello, I'm Jo Elvin and you are very welcome to a very special episode of Palace Confidential, being the year in review and what a blockbuster year 2025 has been. We've had triumphs and tragedies, high court battles and shotgun meetings, returns to duty after illness, and an arrival on Netflix for no apparent reason whatsoever. Palace Confidential came to you live from VE Day and Royal Ascot, and on the occasion of the jaw-dropping deprincing of a certain Mr. Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, but more on all of that later. Before we dive headfirst into 2025, let me tell you something wild about what's happening right now as you are watching, because it turns out that half of our regular viewers, half of you, are not subscribed. And why does that matter? Well, because the only way to make sure you never miss any of our most confidential content is to subscribe to the Daily Mail Royals YouTube channel. It's free and it's easy. One little click gets you notified about Palace Confidential, Palace Authorised, Royal Reacts, Royal Fashion, Royal Walks, live events, Acting Royal, Reading the Royals. Seriously, what wouldn't you want with all of that? Now, we also have the weekly Palace Confidential newsletter, which you can sign up to by clicking the link below or scanning the QR code on screen now. Just grab your phone, open that camera app, point it at the code until a notification appears for you to follow the link. It's that simple. We started the year with a wonderful piece of news when it was announced in January that Katherine, the Princess of Wales, was officially cancer-free after making an emotional return to the hospital where she received treatment. Something our panel were both relieved and delighted about.
Really joyous start of the year to it, isn't it? I was told about a day before that she was planning to do this, but they wanted to do it amid quite a kind of security blackout because the Royal Marsden Hospital where she was going is still very much a working hospital. But we had a small media contingency down there, and she wanted to go back to the hospital, which we've now had confirmed was where she has been having her treatment over the past year, to show sympathy and support for fellow patients who are going through the treatment when she has fortunately got to the end of hers, and also to thank the staff, as that she said later, that have walked quietly by her and William's side throughout what's been a really difficult year. And I think where she is so brilliant at these things is she didn't go into the hospital and say, look, this is my story, this is about me. She wanted to hear about other people, and then would let the odd little kind of tidbit of information slip about, yes, I remember that. I mean, she was very open. She talked about having a port inserted into her chest to have the chemotherapy treatment taken into her body. I mean, that's incredibly open, but she did it in a way that was almost kind of quite casual. Right? You know, she wanted to make it about them, not about her. And then later we got a statement from her confirming for the first time that she was now officially in remission from the disease. I mean, it's important to stress that's not the same as being cancer-free, because doctors will never say that, because of course it is a particularly virulent disease that can come back, but it's another incredibly important and incredibly positive milestone for her. It
really is. It's such great news, but I suppose a lot of people will be keen to see more of Katherine, but we're not quite back to business as usual, are we?
No, and I think, as I said in the programme the other week about the feature I wrote about her birthday, you know, people I spoke to were very keen to stress that while we will see her more than we have in the past 12 months, there is no great reset button being sent, you know, in January. This is all about a very slow and measured return. Her recovery is still ongoing, both mentally as well as physically, given what she's been through. But, you know, this week was very much about her wanting to tell a little bit more about what she'd been through, but highlight the incredible people that had made this last year that little bit more bearable for her.
Absolutely. Richard, what are your thoughts on how Katherine has managed this comeback?
Yeah, I mean, how fitting that her first engagement should be at the hospital where she was treated, that's been central to her recovery. And I think that sort of sets the pattern for the engagements we're going to see, that yes, there may be fewer of them this year, but they'll be more meaningful to her. So I would fully expect, you know, engagements to be connected to the early years, which is that great passion of hers, and other things. So yes, maybe fewer, but very much more meaningful.
Charlotte, her interactions with the patients, I think, were perhaps also a sign of how useful she really is to the family. What do you think?
Yeah, they must be so relieved to have her back, because I thought it was just a real masterclass in how to be a royal at these engagements. And I was really reminded of the fact that she learnt, of course, while the last queen, the late queen, was still alive. So she learnt from the master. And picking up on what you were saying, Rebecca, she was so good at kind of absorbing the odd compliment, taking a compliment, but then not making it all about herself, not being a victim, and deflecting the question back, because she was genuinely interested to hear about the cancer patients and what they were going through. And the Queen famously used to do that. She was very, very good at deflecting questions about herself and not making it, you know, all about the Katherine show. It was about the people she came to see, and she was just brilliant at it, and I've really missed that, actually.
In February, former royal staffer Jason Knauf gave an interview that created quite a few headlines, many of which revived claims that Meghan Markle had bullied staff, which she has denied. Here is Richard Eden to explain why this was painful for the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. Well, let's return to that interview with Jason Knauf now. And he was asked about being thrust into the spotlight after an email emerged where he had claimed that Meghan had bullied 2 staff members from their jobs at the palace. Claims that she denies, of course. Now, Rebecca, while he said he wished them the best, he also said he had no regrets and wouldn't change anything. Now, that won't be what Harry and Meghan will want to hear, is it?
I mean, to be fair to Jason, I think he was slightly put on the spot with this, and actually
He must have expected it, though.
Yeah, I think he probably did to a certain extent, but the programme seemed to focus more on that, I think, than actually kind of his insight into what William was going to be like as king. And I think he chose his words very, very carefully, and he made clear, he said, as a PR professional, when you're, you know, defending people's actions and protecting public figures from the media, sometimes probably you do have to get a taste of your own medicine and be on the receiving end of it. And unfortunately for Jason, when he made, you know, those allegations and they were then made public, and then he subsequently appeared as a witness in a case between Harry and the Mail on Sunday, the vitriol thrown in his direction was awful, and I would argue wholly disproportionate for someone who was just trying to do the right thing by the people he worked for. So he was very diplomatic and said, look, I think you have to take the rough with the smooth with this job, and I certainly did in bucket loads.
I thought he came across really well, actually.
Yeah, so did I. I mean, I know him. As I say, he was a very decent guy, and you know, was a very good PR professional, but just ended up, like a lot of people who worked there, in a very difficult situation.
What do you think, Richard? Obviously, we know that Meghan's new Netflix show premieres next week. Can we read anything into the timing of this interview in that context?
I mean, certainly the timing is very interesting, because you might remember that the emails, the claims about Meghan's bullying came out just days, I think it was literally the day before the big sit-down interview with Oprah Winfrey that caused so much trouble. So there was a sense that, you know, that had been leaked to try to, you know, I would say to put some balance out there before they started attacking the royal family. And then we have this interview now being broadcast just before her much hyped new series. So yes, the time is interesting. I mean, realistically, it's probably a coincidence, but I mean, there's no doubt that this interview will be painful and worrying for Harry and Meghan.
And do you think it will have a detrimental effect on any PR and buzz around the show?
I'm not sure about that, but it certainly just will worry Meghan in the sense of what's next.
Right.
Is this going to open the floodgates? You know, will he be saying more? And will others speak out? Because remember, there's so much still to come out.
Now, what was interesting to me, I thought, Rebecca, is like even people who haven't worked at the palace for years are normally very, very reluctant to go on the public record. So he must have had some sort of tacit approval from William to do this interview.
I think people have assumed that. I'm not so entirely sure that's the case, because I think a good PR professional instinctively knows what is the right thing to do and what their bosses, or former bosses in this case, would approve of and what they wouldn't approve of. And I've seen that time and time again with people certainly speaking for the royal family.
But he wouldn't have blindsided William with this interview.
No, I'm sure he would have told him that he'd planned to do it. And so, you know, I know from his point of view, the reason why he did the interview was actually not to kind of raise the whole Harry and Meghan issue again. Actually, it was just to pay tribute to the man that he worked for. And as he said with William and Katherine, what you see is what you get. And, you know, he thinks you know, he will make a very good Prince of Wales and eventually a very good king. That was actually the point of him doing the interview.
Now, it's something that we've talked about before, Richard, but it feels like this so-called, you know, dossier of alleged bullying, it feels like we still don't know any detail and we probably never will.
No, the problem we've got is that Buckingham Palace said that it would remain private and confidential. They said that, you know, they carried out this investigation, they spoke to people, and they will kind of use it in the future when they're formulating, you know, a policy of how things work in the palace. So
right.
they sort of said it would be useful in that way, but not publishing it. And that's very unsatisfactory because, you know, for Harry and Meghan, perhaps they want it to be published because there's these claims being made, but they can't really address them. It's just lingering until they're actually in the public. So it's unsatisfactory for Meghan's, from her perspective, but also, you know, for the public and everyone else. Like, what's the truth? If this bullying's going on, shouldn't, you know, we be allowed to know about it?
Well, the other point I think it raises is, Rebecca, Harry, we know, is not shy about launching legal claims, and there's never been any whiff of that about these allegations, has there?
No, and don't forget at the time they did issue some strongly worded legal rebuttal to the claims which were first aired in the Times newspaper. In fact, they described it as part of an ongoing smear campaign against the couple, but her in particular, you know, which were very strong words, and yet they've never followed up on that. And I think a lot of people have been led to the conclusion that that's because there is a certain amount of truth in them. Because if not, why not sue? They've sued over pretty much everything else.
Well, and it was interesting, wasn't it, Richard? One of your colleagues called it a ticking time bomb for Meghan. Yes,
well, this was a column by Amanda Patel that people can read on Mail Plus, and she was just making a similar point to the one I've just made, which is that the fact that Jason has spoken out might encourage others, and the time bomb is the sense that there's a lot which hasn't been said in public, which may be said.
And do you think that's fair?
I mean, certainly, I think Jason feels very strongly about it, and others do, because they feel that, you know, it wasn't right that it was kept quiet. I mean, we saw that in the emails that were published at the time, that he was very disappointed that at Meghan's treatment of some staff and the way that was handled. So, you know, I think the best thing would be if the palace does publish it and, you know, let us see. That really would be good for everyone.
But as I say, that's not looking likely, is it, at the moment?
No, I mean, to be fair to the palace, one of their arguments was that it involves, obviously, private interactions, and some of these people actually don't want their identities made public because they're professionals who are trying to move ahead in the fields that they're working in, and some actually were genuinely traumatised by their experience. I think where that argument falls down is the fact the palace made a point of saying, we are investigating this, ... And everyone expected that the results of that investigation would be made public.
In March, King Charles was briefly hospitalised after experiencing what was described as temporary side effects related to his cancer treatment. Our panel was naturally shocked, especially as Charles also cancelled several planned engagements on the advice of his doctors. Now let's talk about the King now, Rebecca. He gave us all a bit of a scare this week, didn't he, with a new health development?
He did, but the good news is the minute we wrap up filming, I'm about to rush off and do an engagement with him, which I'm pretty sure
Of course you are.
I'm pretty sure he wouldn't be doing if he was still feeling terrible. But it's still serious. It's a reminder for us all of what this incredibly brave and dignified man is going through on a personal level. We were told by the palace very late on Thursday night that he had unfortunately suffered some side effects of the ongoing cancer treatment that he's having on a largely weekly basis, and that he had to go into hospital for observation. I mean, by the afternoon, you know, late afternoon, he was back at home at Clarence's house with Queen Camilla. They had dinner together, he was working. So I think it was only, you know, a very brief issue. But the doctors decided to err on the side of caution and cancel his afternoon engagements and also a string of engagements in Birmingham the next day. I was told by people actually he probably was well enough to do Birmingham, but they said, you know what, let's just be on the safe side.
Yeah.
He'd already planned to go to Highgrove for the weekend because it's the last weekend he can be there before the gardens open up for charity for the summer, so he decided to go and have a nice long weekend of R&R. But he's been back working every day this week. But as I say, I think it's a reminder to us that this is a man who is, as often has been described to me, is living with cancer on an ongoing basis. And you know, sometimes we all need to remember that and cut him a little bit of slack.
Well, it sounds to me, Richard, like perhaps a lot of people would think the King needs to remember that. Do you think that as a relief that it is that, you know, he's doing well, do you imagine that a lot of people inside and outside the palace are sort of begging him to please relax, slow down?
Yeah, I mean, let's put this in context. Remember, he's our first monarch ever to have publicly been known to have cancer. I mean, you know, remember when his grandfather, George VI, had cancer, he wasn't even told himself of the diagnosis.
It's extraordinary, isn't it?
He underwent an operation to remove malignant tumour, but the doctors didn't even tell him. So, you know, there was no question of the public known. So here we have our monarch, our head of state, who is undergoing this very lengthy cancer treatment. And obviously it means we're in, you know, uncharted waters, aren't we? And so if he does have to visit hospital because he's feeling just a bit rough from treatment, as is quite understandable, obviously people do start to panic a bit and worry. So I think we all need to be mature about it and understanding. And I think people generally are. But I do get the sense that the Queen is very keen to slow him down a bit. I think she'd rather, frankly, that he was, you know, relaxing in the garden and not doing any jobs at all, but that's just not him, is it?
Good luck with that, Her Majesty.
And sorry to interrupt, it's worth noting, because I asked the palace, like, because it was only a brief hospital stay, you know, why did you put this out publicly? Because Richard's right, in the old days, even with Queen Elizabeth, you know, she once had an overnight stay in hospital, you know, in the years before her death that we weren't told about. And there was quite an outcry about that because she's our head of state and she requires an overnight hospital visit. There is a strong feeling that the public should be informed, and the palace later admitted they made quite a big error on that. But they said, look, the King has personally wanted to be as open as he possibly could about this from the start, still allowing himself some privacy, some medical privacy, which he's entitled to, which is one of the reasons why they haven't said what kind of cancer he is. Also because, you know, people then go online, use Dr. Google, what's the matter with him, and, you know, it'll start all sorts of conjecture. But he has genuinely made a personal decision that he wants to be as open as possible with people. So this was very much driven by him. So I think, again, it's a reminder, but let's not get over excited about it.
And remember that he could have easily cancelled this trip to Italy because he was originally, the big part of it was to meet the Pope, but the Pope has not been well enough to meet him, so they could have called it off. But it shows you how determined he and the Queen are to fulfil their duties.
Indeed. Now, do you remember a time before Meghan Markle was on Netflix extolling the virtues of dried flower petals and gratuitous decanting? We do. It was March 2025, and this is how our panel reacted to Meghan launching whatever. Sorry, apologies, I read that wrong. Meghan launching As Ever. Richard, what was your first impression?
First impression was, you know, I got up early, I was there watching it at 8 o'clock. And
wow, that is early for you.
I'll be honest, I had quite low expectations, but I do like cookery programmes. I like, you know, sort of Jamie Oliver and things like that. So I was hoping it would be like that. But it was just very, very boring. I mean, look, I admit...
That is not the reaction she will be hoping.
I'm probably not the target market, I would imagine. But, you know, in the first episode, it was her with her good friend, makeup artist, Daniel Martin. And I'm sure he's a wonderful makeup artist, but by golly, he's dull. He really is. And then they were just making different things. It wasn't like a cookery show where here's how you make a nice dish.
That's the thing. I don't think it is a cookery show, is it?
No.
It's a lifestyle show.
Okay, we call it a lifestyle show, right? So in this programme, just take the first episode, you know, they made a pasta dish, which is something could be useful for students. It was basically put a load of tomatoes in a pan and add some spaghetti and then add some hot water.
She's stolen my recipe. She's stolen my secret recipe.
It's very useful for, you know, for children going to university. But then they made candles. And then they also made a sponge cake. So it was just kind of, you know, different things. But I did plough on. I watched it for hours and hours this morning. But I'm afraid it didn't get much better.
Rebecca, you looked, when I greeted you earlier today, like you'd been through some sort of an ordeal after watching it. Is that fair?
Yeah, I'll be honest, I lost the will to live after the episode about making ice cubes, I'll be honest.
How do you make ice cubes?
Yeah.
Pray tell.
But I have to say, I went into it with an open mind, and actually I would say a little bit of a high bar, because I think she was very successful, or moderately successful with the TIG, with her pre-Harry lifestyle website and blog. So I thought, actually, this is something she knows something about. But I'm very much like Richard. I couldn't really work out what she was trying to say. I couldn't really work out who she was trying to appeal to. There was lots of, oh, Meghan, aren't you wonderful? Oh my God, it's so amazing. Lots of kind of, joyful faces as they're licking cream off spoons. But it just didn't seem very relatable to me, I have to say.
Here's the thing that is the stumbling block for me. I think my understanding of it going in is that it's a lifestyle show that portrays for her fans and people interested Meghan's lifestyle, how she lives her life. It's not even filmed at her house.
No, and she was making a point actually in one part of it of saying, look, this is not just for people who've got grand estates in California. You could do this in your little flat in London. You could grow edible flowers or vegetables.
I can't grow fake grass in my London garden.
No.
It's like I just don't have the sunlight that they do in California.
Exactly. But she was saying that at the same time as she was harvesting vegetables and fruit that had been grown for her by somebody else at somebody else's house. So again, it just goes back to this relatability factor, and I just don't see who it was appealing to.
I mean, there's often, in these cookery programmes, they nearly always use a studio or whatever because, you don't want to have vast numbers of crew in your own house. So we understand that.
But if you're selling your lifestyle as a brand, a la Martha Stewart, then you do, a la Delia Smith in the 80s.
Well, what I was going to say is this takes things to a new level because, as you say, like one episode would start with her harvesting, blackberries from the garden and talking about how she likes to do that in the morning. And then everyone knows that's not her house. So then you're thinking, this is a bit phony.
It's weird, isn't it? But what did you make of the use of the children in it, Richard?
Yeah, this is really interesting actually because Prince Archie and Princess Lilibet didn't feature in it in the sense that they didn't appear, but they were constantly referred to because it was Meghan as a mother talking about how she likes to cook for them, look after them. They were preparing for a children's birthday party at one point, so they kind of loom very large. But also they featured heavily in the promotion of the programme. That she gave an interview to People magazine where she talked about them, and crucially on social media, on Instagram, there was a video of Princess Lilibet with Serena Williams and her children, and that was to promote the programme.
And so do you think that built in an expectation around the children being in the show?
Well, and also it did with me, because Serena Williams, I thought, so she's obviously one of the guests, but
yes.
She's not in this series. So I wonder if that was a sort of favour to help promote it. But, I mean, there's no two ways about it. She's using the children to promote her programme.
Well, she does talk a lot, doesn't she, Rebecca? She refers to herself as Mama throughout the show.
Yeah, there's a lot of third-person references, I have to say, which for me personally is a bit of a turn-off.
For Rebecca English personally?
say
that.
Yeah, it's a bit of a turn-off. I mean, I should say that I think there's some good things about it. I mean, I think the cinematography, or however you describe it,
looks gorgeous.
Was beautiful.
Yeah.
I mean, I would love to have a Californian mansion and estate and kind of wander around in my sundress waving, bunches of flowers in the air. It's a very beautiful lifestyle, but it's just obviously one I'm clearly never going to be able to afford.
Oh, who knows?
That's blown my illusions about your salary as the royal editor. I thought you were on millions. Richard, one thing I have noticed, there's been a lot of discussion, seems to be a mini stir caused by the Sussex name that's been mentioned in it.
Yes, this was one of the few genuinely interesting bits in the series. Was when, so in the second episode, her guest was Mindy Kaling, the actress, writer, comedian, And she has to be said, she doesn't know Meghan very well. She only knows her because she appeared in the Archetype series that Meghan produced for Spotify. And so she comes round and they're chatting, and then she makes a reference to Meghan Markle. And that seemed to go down really badly. Meghan actually kind of sort of stopped her and said, no, it's funny, you keep saying Meghan Markle.
And I thought it was so interesting. It's like, it's this breezy tone, but the voice is a little tighter.
Yeah. I mean, it did seem like, whoa,
Yeah.
like a real insight
Yeah.
into a character. But she stopped her dead and said, no, actually, now I'm Meghan Sussex. And, you know, that was, to be honest, that was sort of news to all of us because we didn't realise that they were using these titles. And I think I should explain a bit about it. So their children, for example, Archie and Lilibet, on their birth certificates, Mountbatten Windsor, which is the royal family surname.
Well, this is where the argument's been online today, isn't it? Because some people think that that's their surname.
Yes, so it is.
Yeah.
But since they became the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, the family can also use the Sussex title. So we have that for aristocrats in this country. You know, you might have, let's take, say, the Duke of Marlborough. His family name is Spencer Churchill, but he might call himself Jamie Marlborough. And, you know, you're perfectly entitled to do that. So they've obviously chosen to use the Sussex name in the same way that Harry used to be known as Harry Wales when he was in the armed forces. But it's definitely interesting, and very interesting that she should choose to sort of stop her friend when she was saying that. And you do wonder why. It was quite
I'm
odd.
sorry to interrupt, but
well-
poor Mindy Kaling looked a little bit kind of chastised. And
Yes.
said, oh, well, now I know. That's wonderful.
What, if anything, can we read into the significance of that? Like, you know, really being emphatic about I'm a Sussex.
I think a switch was slightly triggered, I have to say, with that comment. As you could see that she didn't like it. And actually in the People interview, she makes a point of also emphasising that she loves to be able to share the same family name as her children. Now, there are some people, myself included, that don't have the same name as their family and children. And there's a little bit of me that feels, I wouldn't say offended, because what she says doesn't really matter to me. But I think some people could. Does it make you a less committed, less loving parent if you don't have the same surname as your partner and child? I don't think it does, but obviously she wanted to make a point of that.
Yeah, well, Richard, also many might be asking if it was so important to you, you know, why did you want to get away from the family that gave you that title?
Yeah, that's a very good point. I mean, we've seen this time and time again, that when Prince Archie was born, they briefed journalists close to them. I remember my old mate Omid Scobie going online to say they've made a point of saying that they're not going to use titles. They don't want titles. But then we learnt later in the Oprah Winfrey interview that had become a big issue, that they were concerned that Archie wasn't going to get a title, and they felt they were being hard done by, and it became a big grievance and reason for upset. So in the same way that they've gone to America, you know, a country that's very egalitarian, it doesn't really respect titles like that traditionally, but they insisted on calling their children Prince and Princess, and insist on using these Duke and Duchess of Sussex titles, even though they're no longer working members of the royal family. So, you know, to me anyway, there's a real contradiction there.
I thought it was interesting what you were saying, that this idea that Meghan and Mindy Kaling actually don't know each other that well. They met, is that true?
That was the only time they've ever met. Yeah.
Doing the Archetypes podcast. So what did you make of their interaction on their episode then, Rebecca?
Mindy made the point actually of saying, look, we're kind of email friends. So it suggests that it probably was the only second time that she'd actually met her. And again, there was a lot from Mindy of saying, oh my God, you're so wonderful, Meghan. Like, this is the most, when you sent me that pot of jam, it was the most amazing moment of her life. Yeah. But interestingly, she reveals that she was the one that got number 50. And she kind of says a bit like, I just kind of casually wondered, like, does that put me in a pecking order for basically 50? And Meghan revealed that actually the first one, and actually I think this was quite sweet, went to her mother because she felt that was the right thing to do. And then she said, I just hope that everyone else who got one would feel, blessed that I sent them one and wanted to share it on social media. But I have to say, I think I'm with Mindy. I think if I got number 50, I'd think I was at the end of quite a long list to receive one.
But look, I'm grateful to Mindy because she's clearly an interesting, funny person, and the episode with her was much more entertaining than the one with the poor makeup artist.
Because she's funny, but
yeah.
But no, he cut his finger. I would say that was the most dramatic incident in the entire 8-episode series, Richard.
Do you think someone from a Netflix producer just threw a knife, hoping it would
just cut your finger? Come on, do
jeopardy.
something. Yeah.
Did you think, Richard, that these interviews were similar to how she conducted her interviews on her podcast?
They are, in the sense that the point of the Archetypes podcast series was meant to be to hear from the guests. And she had some really interesting guests. You might remember she had her friend Serena Williams, she had Mariah Carey, and we all wanted to hear about these people. But it ended up, actually, we just heard far more about Meghan. And I think that was I personally would have liked to have had more jokes and hear more from Mindy Kaling. But it is the Meghan show that's made crystal clear. And if you like Meghan, hopefully you'll enjoy this programme. And if you don't, I wouldn't advise watching it.
That's a fair enough review, isn't it?
I think it was quite subservient television, wasn't it? It was all about putting her in the best light. And as you rightly say, look, this will probably appeal to an audience somewhere, people who like her particularly, but like lifestyling, programming. I think just for me personally, it felt a bit out of date, and that people are doing this on TikTok and Instagram quicker, sharper, and in a much more relevant way that gets it out there to many more people very quickly.
It's funny you mention those social media platforms, because she said in an interview leading up to the series that she didn't want to be seen as an influencer, but this sort of like beautiful looking, curated fruit salads and floral sprinkled donuts, that is the fodder of Instagram influencing.
100%, that's its raison d'etre.
Yeah.
So if she doesn't want to influence people, then what is she trying to do? Because surely, at the end of it, she's trying to influence them to buy her products once they've watched the programme.
Yeah.
So, and actually there's nothing wrong with being an influencer. It almost suggests that that's slightly beneath her and that she wants to be an entrepreneur, she said, a kind of leading female entrepreneur. But, influencers, I would venture, many of them earn probably more than all of us sitting here together in one go.
I don't like to think about it.
Do you know what I mean? So it's not an unsuccessful career to have.
But that's the thing, if you want to be an entrepreneur, Richard, it's what are you entrepreneuring? You need to become influential and influence the first. Sure.
Well, in a way, it's just a sign of how things haven't worked out for Meghan, because, she left behind that. She tried to, be an influencer, start the TIG. No one had heard of that at the time at all. It was very minor stuff, in the same way that most people hadn't heard of her. But she happily, willingly left that behind to become a princess. And then she was going to be a stateswoman, a figure on the world stage. Mm. Well, the fact she's back doing this, really, as a sort of influencer type, shows that things haven't worked out to me.
Interesting. What did you make of that? There was, at the start of the Mindy episode, she says something like, I realise Mindy's coming and I don't have anything to feed her. But then there's like a massive big basket of eggs on the counter and she opens the fridge and it's full. It just seems a bit...
insincere?
So is it contrived? Is it like, should someone have done a different script to go with the full basket of eggs?
Yeah, I thought that didn't work, because we know from the sort of pre-publicity that it's not her home. And so then sort of, who's going to turn up at my house kind of thing. It's just weird, And, not many people have a fridge as beautifully clean and ordered as hers. So it was all there ready for her guest's arrival.
And then there's, sort of like all the beautiful outfits. It's like, I guess, again, to my point, it's a lifestyle show. It's not meant to be real. It's aspirational, right?
How she did not splash something on her clothes, I do not know. Or maybe I am, I'll be honest, I am very clumsy. I can't make a cup of tea without spilling something. But she was pristine at the end of every episode, and I must applaud her for that, I have to say.
Did you learn anything? I know the ice cubes episode caught your attention?
There was a line, I wish I could remember the exact wording off the top of my head, but she basically said, ice cubes are great because you can put them in your drinks and to keep them cold, and they don't dissolve and add to the volume.
Well,
so
I have to say this, because when you were talking about this earlier, it's like, do you remember when the world annihilated Pippa Middleton?
That's exactly what I was about to say.
Simple, sort of like overly simple
Pippa tips.
Lifestyle tips. It's no different.
Pippa
No, I
Middleton,
think we all
comeback.
owe an apology to the Princess of Wales' sister Pippa for this, because everyone mocked her for the Pippa tips. It was a book, I think it was called Celebrate, and it was very similar to this. But Meghan's was even more obvious. I mean, come on, there's one episode where it's, let's prepare for a child's birthday party. So she suggests, let's make sandwiches. And you think, oh, interesting, yeah. What should we have?
To be honest, that is a brave move in California, just to get the bread out, I'll be honest.
We'll have ham and cheese. So they make ham and cheese sandwiches.
Processed.
And then she adds her personal touches. And then she thinks, how can we decorate? How can we get children excited for a party? I know, we'll have balloons. And you think, thank goodness, I really value that tip. But no, it got better, because actually it's quite exhausting to keep blowing up all these balloons. So Meghan had an answer for you. You buy something, which she said you can buy online.
I thought you were going to say get an assistant to do it.
No, you can buy online a machine which will pump up the balloons for you. Now that's brilliant. I mean, she has earned all the money that Netflix has paid her.
And I noticed with those sandwiches, they cut out shapes, and that's something I think a lot of parents have been doing for years. But then she sprinkled them with edible flowers. And look, maybe I'm a very bad mother, but my family and most of my children I know, if you put edible flowers on sandwich, they'd be like, ugh,
but
what's
again,
that?
maybe we just...
And we'd have to pick them off before they'd even eat them.
But maybe we just don't know California kids. I mean, maybe California kids like Manuka honey in their party bag to take home.
Oh, don't, Joe. Well, you know my feelings on this. So, in the same episode, she was making these party bags for the children to take home. And it was compostable pot with seeds in. And she said, basically, if you really want to treat them, put one of these little sticks of Manuka honey in. And I mean it's
it is cute, but I know, like the kids would be like, where's my lollipop?
They want their Haribo,
Yeah.
they want their bouncy ball, and they want some plastic tat that their parent is going to throw in the bin the minute they've gone to sleep, quite frankly.
I'm pretty old now, but I still remember the days of getting those party bags and just pulling them out to see what sweets were in there. But
Yeah.
can you imagine pulling them out and finding it's a few seeds and a little...
Maybe kids are just very different since your day so very long ago.
I know a few kids that would have probably asked to have their present back as a refund because they felt they've been shortchanged. I mean...
California definitely seems to be a different world.
We could be being a bit mean. It's just, maybe it's just a very different lifestyle thing. And
Maybe.
It's not one I'm used to.
Well, and Meghan has missed California. She says in the final episode, Richard, that while she's making some salad, that the salad tastes like home, and I've missed California, which she's been there for 5 years now. It's like...
Well, it ties in with other comments she makes in that final episode, and it's sort of, how I've suffered, basically, while being in the royal family. I mean, come on, she was only in Britain for about 2 years. I mean, let's be clear, prior to that, she'd lived in Canada, in, was it Toronto? For quite a few years,
7
I think.
years or so.
7
Doing
years.
suits, yeah.
7 years. So she hadn't lived in California, since she left her first husband. Let's be honest. So the idea that it's so painful, but it sort of just ties into that sort of victim mentality, really.
Do you think, Rebecca, there's any genuine insights into hers and Harry's life in the show?
Well, she does mention the children a lot and the kind of things they do at home. She mentions Harry loves fried chicken. There's a little video a movie video of her walking with Delphina, one of her friends, in the Hollywood Hills, and you can hear Harry behind the camera laughing as he jumps out and surprises them. And obviously Harry does make an appearance at the end. But I think this goes back to the original point that we were making. If you want people to buy into your lifestyle and want to emulate it, it needs to be authentic. And I'm not sure there was that many insights into their lives personally.
And also on that note of authenticity, Richard, she does in a lot of the episodes sort of constantly say she's not an expert. So you just are wondering who, if she's not the expert in cooking, and you can go to experts in cooking, you can go to experts in interior decor, on any platform you choose. It's like, what's the point?
So for example, before she bakes a cake, she made the point, I don't really like baking. Yeah, okay, fair enough. But I think, to be fair, she then wants to show, actually, it's not that hard. This is how you can bake a tasty cake. But the point is, it's clearly, it's not a cookery show. It's not an expert show. So it's her lifestyle. It's kind of, because remember, this ties in with the business, the lifestyle business. It's basically, let's be frank, it's all about money, and it's how you can buy into Meghan's enviable lifestyle.
But I guess that's, to me, it's like the question is like, what is the lifestyle? If I don't like baking, but here I'm going to bake for you. So why are you watching the person who doesn't like baking and admits to not being that good at it doing it?
Well, I think you would watch it just because you enjoy spending time in Meghan's company.
Right,
That's Netflix obviously hopes there's a lot of people who do out there, and the proof will be in the expertly made pudding.
And to be fair to her, she clearly enjoys spending time in the kitchen. She's clearly a keen, enthusiastic amateur cook.
Well, is she? I don't know. It's not her kitchen.
Well, that's true. But I think you have to be reasonable about these things. And she does clearly enjoy things. She's quite talented at presentation, presuming it's her that's done this and not food stylists. And we see her doing, some of the presentation herself. It looks very beautiful. I don't have an arty bone in my body. I could not make a plate of crudités look lovely. And she does. So there is, she's an enthusiastic amateur. Whether that's enough to create enough a buzz about this programme and what it's trying to achieve and what it's trying to ultimately sell is another question.
Well, I will say she has absolutely beautiful handwriting.
Yes,
she does.
She does, yes.
We know she did
Renowned.
some calligraphy professionally, didn't she? But you see her writing, and her handwriting put some of us to shame. Indeed.
And we do, as you mentioned, see Harry in that final episode. What was that like?
It was quite a blink or you'll miss appearance. She references him in a few of the episodes, and then says in this 8th episode, "Oh, my husband's just popping by to come and see." And she has
popping by to his house, or just
to the house that she's filming in, along with her mother Dory and a few friends, to celebrate her basically, and the start of her business. And you see him turn up, and there's a very warm hug and a kiss between them. And she said, "Isn't this great?" And he said, "Yeah, it's wonderful. You've done a great job." And you see him with a glass in a hand, their arms around each other. But it is very blink and you'll miss it. And certainly in the interview in People magazine, they quoted an anonymous crew member that said that was deliberate, because although he popped around to see her and was very supportive while the filming process was on, he felt this was her time to shine. Truthfully, I think also he just doesn't like getting his hands grubby selling stuff.
Yeah.
And, he wants to stick to his philanthropic side of things, and giving kind of speeches which you could get paid, decent amount of money for, and leave the kind of the cold, hard sales side of their life to her.
Richard, there was a line that apparently upset you in the show. What was it?
Well, this was that final episode's really interesting because it kind of shows what it's all about. And what annoyed me was, she said that basically, thank you for coming to all these guests. She said the people she loves most, and that she's just delighted to be able to use creativity again, which she hasn't been able to do. So it was very unsubtle, but the strong implication of that was, while I was in the royal family, I couldn't sort of show my creativity. Well, that's highly offensive, because, just think about what you can do as a member of the royal family. Prince Philip, for example, he was the, consort, but he helped establish the Worldwide Fund for Nature. Prince Charles, as Prince of Wales, established the Prince's Trust and numerous other things. And then William and Katherine now are doing all sorts with Earthshot Prize and various initiatives. So the idea that it somehow stifles your creativity, let's be clear, what she actually meant was money. It meant she couldn't make money. When I first revealed that she was going to be making this programme, it was because she'd launched her lifestyle brand, And she basically then said to Netflix, you know, I want a programme to go with it to help promote the brand. That's what this is all about. I mean, Daniel Martin, the makeup artist who features in episode 1, for example, he visited Meghan at Windsor when she was still a member of the royal family. And I remember him putting on Instagram like an image of the lovely avocado on toast and stuff, which she'd made for him. So she's perfectly entitled to entertain, to make what she likes, you know? So it's just, it's that victim myth, basically, that, you know, she's the victim and now she's free. It's really quite offensive.
What do you think, Rebecca, that the royal family, those in royal circles, will make of it? Have they been sat around glued to Netflix this morning?
I think I can safely say no. I mean, I've asked a few people. I asked someone last week about it, and they went, "Oh, when is it? Tuesday?" I mean, they were that disinterested.
I don't believe they're all uninterested.
Look, I'm sure there's some people might watch it and they might get past the first episode. They might not, but honestly, I genuinely think they don't feel it has any relevance to them whatsoever. And to be fair to Meghan, this isn't. Look, I mean, you can argue till the cows come home, would she have got this deal, a deal like this and a show like this in her own right if she hadn't been married to a member of the royal family?
Of course she wouldn't.
Of course she wouldn't. No, I know that's the answer, Richard. I know that. But what I'm saying is, as long as she is not now using her position as a royal in an obvious way to sell it, which I don't think she is.
No.
Well,
then she's got every right to do it if they want. And as long as she stays in her lane, I suppose, and sticks to doing that without nakedly commercialising the royal family, then they don't have an axe to grind.
And we've mentioned before on this show that actually they probably would find it quite useful if it was very successful, because then then they won't need to be harping on about all the, digging up dirt about the royal family.
Yes, I wrote a piece for Mail Plus some time ago, and it was that they were saying exactly that.
Yeah.
That actually, it would suit the royal family if this is a success, frankly, so that if she can make a success out of lifestyle programmes, great.
And speaking of the commercial elements of it, what did you make of those in the show?
Yes, I mean, I think the idea really was that there would be things featured in the programme which you would be able to buy, but the company just wasn't ready yet.
Yeah.
So there will be things that, it's like a spin-off, it's sort of like almost like you saw in the programme, and it will be things like edible flowers that you can sprinkle on your children's ham sandwiches.
Kids love it.
Or, various types of jam and conserves and that sort of thing. So those will come on stream soon, but they're just not ready. But it will be that element of buy into that wonderful Californian lifestyle.
And that does seem a bit of a blunder, doesn't it? Because you'd think you're going to actually make more money in the immediate term, aren't you? That people would say, oh, I like the pan she used to cook that focaccia in. I want to buy that pan. Let me click on a link and do it. Will they remember it if it comes out in a few months' time? I mean,
well, there's no question they've had problems.
Yeah.
I mean, remember that it was officially launched as American Riviera Orchard.
Yeah.
That's been abandoned now. We've got, and it's not with Love Meghan, the brand is as ever. So she's still going through or has only just started the process really of the trademarking and getting that approved.
Now, early reviews, Rebecca, it's fair to say, haven't all been glowing and gushing.
They've been pretty brutal, I have to say. Even in The Guardian in the UK, which is a left-wing leaning newspaper, is very anti-establishment, very anti the royal family, and has been, because of that, largely pretty supportive of Harry and Meghan. And their review today roasts them and basically says, well, say goodbye to your Netflix deal, because this is not going to have secured it. And they just say it's banal, it's pointless. Pretty much all of the UK reviews have been universal. Someone drew my attention to Harper's Bazaar, I think just before I came out. That was obviously an American publication, positive. Maybe that's not to be, unexpected either. I think the trouble is, she is, as we've often said, such a divisive figure. You will either like her and warm to it, or you don't and you won't.
Well, I mean, I hate to be the one to point out, but I think the Harper's Bazaar piece was written by a journalist they took to
Columbia with them.
Yes, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So Look, people will say you've got an axe to grind, but I promise you guys, I genuinely started watching this programme at 8 o'clock this morning with an open mind, just like I did Polo last year, because actually I really liked the trailer for their Polo programme. I love a bit of trash TV, and it looked very Selling Sunset and quite exciting. And I genuinely couldn't get through the first episode because I felt, there wasn't a goodie or a baddie you could relate to. Everyone was just incredibly unappealing. And but I genuinely went into watching this programme today thinking, actually, I might learn something, I quite like the focaccia she cooked. I might give that a go.
Well, the review I'm looking forward to is Jan Moyer's, which will be in the Daily Mail shortly. So she's just brilliant with words.
Adopt the brace position.
I've heard that she said that the series offered her all she expected and more.
Okay, well that could really go either way. On a serious note, the whole show was postponed, Richard, wasn't it, in the wake of the LA fires? But it's still very rich people in their very nice houses. Does it make much difference that it's been postponed in that respect?
No, I thought that decision was odd to postpone it, really, because what difference does it make? As we say, it's meant to be a bit of sort of, I presume, escapist TV.
But I think some people were presuming that there would be edits done to it in the wake of the fires, but it doesn't seem to be the case.
Well, I might have missed something, but I didn't pick up on any references to the fires, and they would have looked very out of place, because this was a programme, basically very rich women with lots of time on their hands, apparently, to do stuff which other people don't have a chance to, enjoying lunches and enjoying a great lifestyle. If this had been made by a working member of the royal family, oh my goodness, it would almost be the end of the monarchy. It'd be Marie Antoinette stuff.
It would never be made by
can you imagine, if Katherine and Princess of Wales did it? It's just unthinkable.
I can't see Princess Anne going on TV making fruit rainbows, though. Although there's part of me that would love to see that. Just make it, shut up, stop fussing about it and get on with it.
Oh, come on, a reality show about Princess Anne's life would be great. Yeah,
Princess Anne would just hurl an orange at you and get you to peel it yourself.
Yeah, that's true.
She would. Now, what do you both think? Is this going to get picked up for a second series? Would this be the making of Meghan's lifestyle career?
In some ways, I'm not expert enough to, on programming and how much this works. I think I've said, I think there are some people it will appeal to, the die-hard Meghan fans, some people who want to kind of have a rubberneck and a look, some people who probably like lifestyle programming. I think other people just will not want to watch it because it's her, and anything she does won't float their boat. I say, as someone who's watched every minute of the 8 episodes, which are over half an hour long, I just came away, I think, well, you saw me, my shoulders down, feeling like I'd lost about 4 hours of my life.
And a failure as a mother because you...
Because I don't sprinkle edible flowers on my children's.
Well, my prediction is there could be another series, but essentially only if Harry and Meghan agree to give more of themselves to Netflix, that in addition to this, they do something like the series they did before, which was a big hit, which I'm afraid will involve talking about the royal family again. I think if they want a lot more money from Netflix, they will have to do something like that. I think I'm pretty confident in saying that no way will they get another lucrative deal for programmes like this.
And interesting, that's what the Guardian review that I mentioned a few questions earlier said, people... The one project they've had that's been very successful involved a lot of whinging, a lot of cattiness about the royal family, a lot of family put my teeth back in again, a lot of family revelations, and that's the one thing they've done that's been very successful. Everything else they've done trying to branch out of that has been an unequivocal flop. So.
In May, events around the world celebrated the 80th anniversary of VE Day, or Victory in Europe Day, marking the end of the Second World War in Europe. And on such a special occasion, Palace Confidential visited Buckingham Palace for our live broadcast. Isn't this strange?
I feel like saying welcome to my manor, that I'm actually bringing you to the place I spend more time in my own home.
Normally we're outside the green screen. Today it's the actual Buckingham Palace. We're very excited, aren't we?
We are, 100%.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Tell me about your highlights so far.
I think, Joe, what today shows is just what Britain and the royal family do best. You know, we really
Even on a grey day.
pull out the stops
Yeah.
on these big occasions, and it's just wonderful to see the royal family, the whole royal family, and it's a proper three-line whip turnout today, here in the public, you know, and actually not just, it's not about them, it's about highlighting the incredible wartime generation.
Yeah, it's so interesting, isn't it? Like that even the little ones actually look really engaged and like really interested in it.
Yeah, I mean, being able to observe the royal family so closely has been really interesting. I noticed there was
I can see the excitement in your eyes, Richard Eden.
It's been very sweet with the children. There was one moment
Yeah.
earlier where Prince Louis was sort of inspecting his father's uniform and brushing away the blossom which has been flying around here today.
Yeah.
So everyone, they wanted to make sure they looked good, and he was checking on his father. So that's very sweet.
And you have been out amongst it in the crowd, sort of like thronging along the Mall this afternoon, haven't you? So what's the atmosphere like?
For me, it brought back memories of the coronation. It was great to go out and
Which coronation?
and meet the crowds.
Yeah.
It's been really good fun. I mean, people have come for a day out. They've come because they want to pay their respects, and it's a day of celebration, but also to see the royal family. And you know, people have got dressed up. I met one lady who had her hair dyed red, white and blue for the occasion.
Oh, I wish I'd thought of that.
Very impressive.
Yeah.
But it's a real sort of joyful atmosphere.
I love that. And Rebecca, I can't help but asking about, we've seen Camilla and Princess Catherine looking resplendent, not wearing military uniform, but looking amazing in what they were wearing. Have you got any details on that for us?
I do, funnily enough. We've got Queen Camilla in a sapphire blue Fiona Clare London dress, and I think really movingly she's wearing a brooch of the 12th Royal Lancers, which was her late father regiment, and that's something that's hugely important to her. And we've got obviously the Princess of Wales, she's wearing Amelia Wickstead and a Sean Barrett hat, and I think again, although she's not wearing she's wearing the RAF Wings brooch, and actually that was because her grandfather served as an RAF fighter pilot in the Second World War.
So everybody in the royal family has a really emotional and personal connection to the military here today, don't they?
Absolutely, and I think that's something that people do recognise. Obviously they're very well aware that they are here because the royal family has such an intrinsic link with the military, and they're all very conscious that every single person in that wartime generation that went out to fight, as well as everyone who's serving in the armed forces ever since, are doing so in the name of the head of state. You know, they are willing to lay down their lives in the name of the sovereign, of the king and the queen of the time. So they're very conscious of that. It's why they have a lot of particular professional associations with these regiments, colonels in chief. But you would be surprised at what goes on behind the scenes as well. And I often hear, when I go on these military engagements, stories of people saying to me, oh, Camilla sends us a bottle of scotch at Christmas. You know, we get personal letters when we come back from, you know, active duty. And these are a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes that I think people don't realise.
I love that. I just need to talk about a very serious point at the moment. Prince William's beard looking absolutely, really dapper, I think, actually. What do you think, though, is Prince William's evolving role in this family, as we've seen today?
We've seen that today, where he's just not centre, because that's of course the king, but very much important there, and almost a sort of patriarch with his children. Is it just me, or did the women coordinate to have sort of red, white and blue today? Because we've had...
well, it wouldn't surprise me. Yeah.
You know, we've had Katherine in sort of burgundy, we've had Queen Camilla in blue, and it looked to me like Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh, was in a sort of white or cream dress.
You need to be doing the fashion commentary, not me, Richard, because you've got a better eye for this.
But they
Absolutely.
definitely
Well,
seem to
you
be
and I got the
coordinating.
Dotty memo, so
We did.
yeah.
We were in the green room. We were both looking at each other with absolute horror. I was like, oh my God, I didn't think to message you.
But and the king looking very well.
Yeah, I think he looks well.
Yeah, I mean, it's striking how he has to stand for a long while taking the salute.
Yeah.
And remember, this is the king who, you know, last year at the D-Day commemorations was keen to be there for the whole thing. And today is just the first day of a very busy week for him. So, yes, it would be grueling, but you can tell that he's enjoying it, really.
Indeed.
Well, sorry, Joe,
No,
I was going
go.
to add to that. I mean, we've actually seen the king stand for half an hour today to take the salute for veterans, because he believes very strongly that he needs to show them respect. It's not them showing him respect.
Yeah.
And I think when you consider that he's going through weekly cancer treatment at the same time as doing all of this, he's got a full week of engagements coming up. You know, I think it really shows the mark of the man.
And look at this, we're just now starting to see the crowds pour into the space. This is wild for me, because as an Australian, I've only ever really seen this on TV. I've never actually been this close to something that this atmospheric. What's it like for you? This is just normal for you,
Yeah,
isn't
well,
it,
we should,
Yeah.
we should explain, these are the crowds that have been lining either side of the Mall, and now they're being allowed to work their way up to be here for the fly past. So it's great to be. I mean, there's some real devotees. There have been people that have been here overnight. They've got here very early.
Well, you were once one of those devotees, weren't you?
It brought back memories of actually being here for the wedding of Prince Andrew and Sarah Ferguson.
With this little periscope. But you had a periscope as a little boy.
How old were you, dare I ask, Richard?
Yeah.
I was very, very small indeed, and I had to have a periscope, but even that was useless, because just like today, the crowds are genuinely sort of about 20 deep.
Yeah.
So, you know, if you're a little boy at the back, you don't really get to see much, to be honest.
But what was it like, as you know, jokes aside, then 1986 to now, even like the full complement of the principal royal family is actually a lot smaller than it was even 5 years ago, isn't it? And do you think we're sort of seeing now that the difficulty of having a slimmed down monarchy and what it means for the extra workload for the people there already?
Well, certainly it makes it more of an occasion to have more members. And, you know, we've seen before on the balcony when it was just very much a slimmed down monarchy, it does look a bit thin. So, I mean, personally, what I would love to see, which we're not going to unfortunately, is the whole extended family on that balcony, you know, where they're sort of packing in. I love that, because it's that sense of the extended family getting together to celebrate with the country.
I wondered if we might see the York princesses today, but no.
No, we're not. No,
Yeah.
it is going to be limited to working members of the royal family and their immediate family. But I still think it's a real treat, and when we've got the full turnout.
Yeah, and you know, we've often discussed that weird word, the so-called optics of royal occasions on this show. But so, what do you think the palace want people to take away from today?
Well, obviously, something we'll probably discuss more on the programme on Thursday.
I'm getting to it.
We have seen quite a lot of royal drama over the last few days, unfortunately, mainly Prince Harry associated. And I know what the palace want today is to really focus on what we're trying to commemorate here in the UK, which is the end of a very damaging war in Europe that saw a lot of loss of lives, and thank the veterans that are still alive, those that have sadly passed away and laid down their lives or died ever since. And also they want to highlight the wartime generation, that generation who aren't standing here moaning about the plane tree column coming down. I mean, I'll be honest, it's
an issue, all right?
I'm a proud Londoner, born and bred, and my family grew up yards from Battersea Flower Station, which was a huge target in the Second World War, and they were bombed out of their house on 3 occasions and lost a lot of possessions. Were very lucky to be alive. I remember my grandmother telling me on one occasion she threw herself over my father's cot to save him, you know, and we forget that the people, you know, the scars of that lived with her throughout the rest of her life. And I think the royal family also want to highlight today the fact that there is an entire generation who lived through that, who lived through rationing, you know, who worked on building up our cities and our nations again following the Second World War. And I think that's what they want to highlight today as well.
And it's interesting because it does lead me to a bit of an elephant in the paddock this afternoon. Is that it's, you know, with the bombshell interview that Prince Harry gave the BBC just a couple of days ago, it's a marked contrast, isn't it? It's like, do you think that they will be worried, the royal family, that that's going to overshadow events today?
I think they're certainly hoping it wouldn't, but it has dominated headlines over the past few days.
Yeah.
I mean, look, today, you know, hopefully the viewers can feel some of this atmosphere as it fills up here, and you know, there's excitement about it, but people are here to remember sacrifice. So, you know, the idea of more whinging from across the Atlantic that has not gone down very well at this particular time.
It's not amazing timing, is it? It's you know, to be sort of like to be talking about your personal risk and all that when we're actually we're sort of commemorating what people went through in World War II.
Absolutely, and there is a real contrast, Joe, I have to say, and that's why. Certainly, I've written a story about it actually in the Daily Mail today, saying, look, let's just put that aside for one day. I'm sure that's something that people will continue to speak on for a while to come, but let's just focus on what we're trying to highlight here.
Now, as the royal family take to the balcony this afternoon, those occasions are always a little bit, you know, it's always a moment, isn't it? Do you think that people will be scrutinising that lineup for any kind of like body language tips, or what do you think people will be looking for in that balcony scene?
Probably a sort of sense of resolution, a sense of togetherness, defiance almost, you could say.
Yeah.
You know, after what's come, they certainly will be keen to show that they're together as a family and that they're carrying on as normal, and they won't be, you know, pushed off course by various salvos from Montecito.
Yeah, interesting. Now, I hope the weather holds out, because apparently the King and Queen will be hosting a tea party this afternoon. Is that right?
They are. I have to say, no great British occasion would be complete without a tea party.
With that dark cloud looming as we speak.
Well, I have to say, what a setting at Buckingham Palace. Come rain or shine, this will be happening.
Yeah.
And we have several hundred guests here. We have not only some of the surviving wartime veterans, I think the oldest here is going to be 104 today.
Can you believe that? Yeah.
And he's given an interview. He said he's never met a member of the royal family before, and he is beyond excited.
How has he never met a member of the royal family before? He must have been to several of these.
Well, he hasn't, and he's very excited about it. And we've got them, we've got their families, and the marble corridor inside there at Buckingham Palace is going to be decorated with bunting made from recycled fabrics from all the royal estates. There'll be tea, there'll be scones. We've got the Queen, King Charles, we've got the Prince and Princess of Wales, not the children at the tea party. That would probably be a bit too much excitement for them.
Yeah.
We've got the Duke and Duchess of Edinburgh there. We've got the Princess Royal. And again, it's their way of just the royal family saying thank you to these people in the best way possible.
I just want to talk about the children for a second, because they're just looking so grown up now, aren't they? Especially, I mean, obviously the oldest George, but it's you just watching them grow up is fascinating.
Well, the only time we see the royal children really is at events like these, so obviously they get scrutinised for their behaviour. Sorry, I've got a cough. But I think with Prince Louis, he seemed to be on best behaviour today. I didn't.
Well, so far.
From my viewpoint, I didn't see any sort of antics that we've had in the past, but they've all done very well, and it's a chance to see them grow up. We saw that with Princess Charlotte's birthday and the beautiful photograph that was put out last week.
Oh, yes.
Again, overshadowed by a certain interview in California.
Well, and it's interesting because you can't help but keep coming back to that, because obviously an event like this, you know, so intrinsic to the military and its history with the royal family, it's royal family members like Prince Harry and, dare I say it, Prince Andrew, who would normally have wanted to have quite a major role in it, wouldn't they?
Yeah, I mean, they will be very sad not to be taking part, because, you know, to think back when Harry and Meghan quit royal duties and left Britain, the idea was that they would come back for events such as this, family events, national events. And, you know, Harry, with his military service, saw this as integral to who he was. So he will certainly be disappointed not to be here, and the same applies to Prince Andrew.
I think a lot of people watching will be wondering about that, the particularly strange comment from Harry about saying he doesn't know how long his father has left. That seems to be, that's, you know, kind of a particularly weird thing, I think, for a family member to say from the royal family.
I think it's particularly distasteful, actually, Joe.
Yeah.
I mean, I was with the King at Windsor Castle on Thursday night, and he was doing a tree planting with the King and Queen of Sweden. I have never heard so much animated small talk about trees and planting in my life.
What can you tell us?
The King was even mansplaining to his wife, Queen Camilla, about how to water the tree. I could see her eyes going, I do know how to water a tree, darling.
I don't think I do.
He was on really good form, and he kind of, I caught his eye at one point, he kind of waggled his eyebrows and smiled like, isn't it fun, we're here again. Then he went inside to Windsor Castle, where there was a big reception for the recipients, quite appropriately today, of the George Cross and the Victoria Cross. And he spent another hour shaking hands, having a drink with people, listening to the stories of these people who'd received our highest awards for bravery in this country. And then I remember walking out and thinking, he looks on really good form, how happy he looks, how animated he is. And then for the next day, for his son to do that to him, I thought was pretty distasteful.
I also think, does it not sort of like, it feels like a bit of a violation of privacy. They've, we've had some detailed reports about the King's health, but they've always drawn a line in the sand about what they're willing and not willing to reveal. And that to me seemed to open up a whole can of worms on that issue.
I have to say, I've had several people contact me to say that Harry should be prosecuted for treason. And they say that because speculating about the death of a monarch used to be regarded as treason.
Really?
Obviously it's not now, because the King has been open about his health battle and everything. But even so, the way he sort of put that in, I don't know how long he has left, it really struck the opposite tone to what we've heard from the palace, which is one of sort of positivity about his treatment. So, and the way he did it as well, it did seem deeply unpleasant, I would say.
Well, I was going to say, the irony, I think, Richard, is him saying he doesn't know how long his father has left to live is not because he's speculating about his health, it's because he's got no idea, because he's so kept out of the loop now, because he does things like that and go on TV and give interviews and talks about very sensitive subjects like that he can't be trusted with that sort of information.
Well, I can imagine that we'll probably be discussing that a lot more on the regular Thursday edition of Palace Confidential.
I don't think there'll be a bet on that. Yeah.
Let's for now, let's talk about, this isn't the only occasion that the royals will be participating in this week, is it?
No, we've got a lot of events coming up this week. Obviously, we have on Tuesday, we have Queen Camilla going to the Tower of London, where she's going to view the incredible display of ceramic poppies there that created such a stir a few years ago, and they've recreated it this week, and she's going to go and view that. And on Thursday we have a big service of commemoration at Westminster Abbey, which all members of the royal family will be at. I'll be there too. I think our Robert Hardman will be there as well, so we'll have plenty to tell you on in Friday's Daily Mail about that. And so, again, they're just putting all of what we've seen to, the last few days to one side and cracking on with what they need to do this week.
Very good. This must also, when I look around and I think the security at something like this must be crazy. I know we've all had to wear QR codes around our neck all day, so it's mad, isn't it?
Security has been phenomenal, and viewers wouldn't realise that if it wasn't for the control, these crowds would be much, much bigger. But what happens is it's controlled in terms of people being able to enter. The whole area is boarded off, so that police have some control of that. So these are your crowds who've been here for hours, probably very cold by this point.
I love the dedication, though.
But I hope this comes across really on screen, that there is this kind of gathering excitement.
It really is, and I think we're not that far away now, are we, from seeing the famous balcony scene of the royal family? Isn't that right? And we've got, is it the Red Arrows coming to fly over?
Yeah, we have a full military fly past. They've got some of the historic wartime aircraft taking part in it, as well as the more modern ones, and I can't wait to see the children's reaction on the balcony for that, because do you remember in years gone past we've seen little Louis putting his hand over his ears, looking up at the sky. He's been the
Charlotte ticking him off.
Yes, been standout star of that. And actually we saw those pictures birthday of him the other week and how much more grown up he is, so I suspect we'll see a slightly more grown up performance, but I can't wait to see it.
I love that. But the royal family have always really been at the centre of these commemorations and at the centre of all of Britain's military history, haven't they?
Yeah, I mean, what lots of people who are here today have told me, that yes, they're here for commemorations to celebrate VE Day, but also it's the royal family that brings them here. And it did make me wonder how many people would come if we were just having a general VE Day celebration. The royal family are there to symbolise the nation and to bring us together. And it's at moments like this that they demonstrate their purpose, I would say.
Yeah, and what have been your personal highlights of today so far?
Well, I think people are getting very excited.
They're not waving at us, but
I don't know, maybe they are, or maybe they're waving at the military started to come over. I love occasions like this because I think I love seeing the royal family together. I mean, we've heard a lot in recent years about things being disunited, but this actually shows how united they are when it comes to what's important, which is representing our country at big national commemorations such as this. And just to see the excitement amongst the crowds. To see you in the flesh and you in the flesh here at Buckingham Palace instead of talking about it. That's been a highlight too.
What about you? I bet your pret-a-manger sandwich was a big highlight, wasn't it, Richard?
I think just being here has been fun.
Yeah.
It's great being in the studio, as we usually are, but being actually out here and meeting the crowds.
Where anything could happen.
What makes it for me.
Yeah, it's exciting, isn't it? So when can we expect to see the royal family? Any minute now, or is we still a bit of a while away?
You've got the time, Joe, I can tell you.
What is the time?
20 to 2.
Oh, so we're minutes away from it now.
Wow.
We'll probably be we'll certainly have a fairly good idea when the roar of the crowd deafens what we're trying to say.
There's something like 1,300 members of the armed forces and veterans here today. Have you met any of the veterans before?
I've met them at lots of different events with excuse me, now I'm suffering from those plane things.
Oh, suffering.
I've met various members of the royal family with them at events over the years. And actually there's a lot of them in the gardens there behind us now in Buckingham Palace. They're there with the Prime Minister. They've all been invited in to watch the military fly past. I'm
going to ask you what I asked Robert Hardman earlier. So it's going to be so interesting, isn't it, as that generation sort of passes on, how the younger members of the royal family feel connected to an event like this.
Yes, I mean 80, there are only a few veterans left, obviously, and
31 though, which is a surprise to me. That's a good showing.
And it felt like that with the D-Day commemorations last year, that this is the last sort of big occasion that it will be celebrated with those. The living after that, it becomes something more historic, really.
Yeah.
So I think that's why it does mean more still.
Yeah. Oh.
Excuse me, sorry. It's plane follow.
Oh, here they come. We're seeing now the royal family. We can see Queen Camilla, King Charles, and with the Prince and Princess of Wales coming out behind them. I have never been this close to the famous royal balcony before. It's quite something. Yeah, it's really something. But taking in the generous love and support of the crowds here. Everybody really excited to see them. Yeah. Do you want a drink of water? It's amazing. The Duchess of Edinburgh and the Duke of Edinburgh. What was that?
That was just an enthusiastic royal watcher.
We love that. You know what, I have to say, I haven't quite seen quite as much wackiness today. Sometimes they do, you get the people all dressed up like your lady in the hair with the red, white and blue, but maybe it's a slightly more sombre occasion.
That's what I mean. That's usually for the weddings. The weddings or baby's birth is a chance to really get dressed up.
Yeah.
This is more commemorative, so striking the right tone is slightly more difficult.
I might have got my voice back now. And I was going to say, last summer when the Buckingham Palace opened... Oh, here we go.
Oh, wow.
How amazing is that? It sends shivers down your spine.
Donald Trump, don't know if you've ever heard of him. Well, in May, he was making noises about Canada becoming the 51st state of the United States of America. One problem with that, Canada already has its own parliament and king. So just as a subtle reminder, King Charles and Queen Camilla popped over for a quick visit. And who was there? Also, Rebecca. Of course she was.
I'm here in Ottawa as King Charles and Queen Camilla embark on a whirlwind 24-hour visit to Canada. Now, he's here, of course, not as a UK sovereign, but in his role as monarch and head of state in Canada. And this visit is being seen as particularly timely because, of course, many Canadians are deeply angered and aggrieved by comments made by US President Donald Trump that he wishes to annex Canada and make it America's 51st state. It's why many Canadians view the King's visit here to open Canada's new session parliament as much about re-establishing their country's sovereignty in the eyes of the world at a very sensitive geopolitical time. At the same time, however, the King has to find a way to carry out these objectives while bearing in mind the British government's determination to put him at the forefront of their charm offensive with the US President. But people I've spoken to at Buckingham Palace assure me that if anyone can do this, it's the King. He has spent a lifetime, more than 60 years, as an international statesman and knows full well the limits of his role as a constitutional monarch, but the way he can harness these kind of legendary power of soft diplomacy. And if the scenes I saw in Ottawa today are anything to go by, I think King Charles and Queen Camilla will continue to receive the warmest of welcomes throughout their time here. Many thousands upon thousands of people turned out just to catch a glimpse of them, many having queued for hours. I heard several impromptu versions of God Save the King and O Canada. The King shook hundreds upon hundreds of hands. He dropped a ceremonial puck for a street hockey game. And even I noted, rather pointedly you might think, hold up a couple of jars of maple syrup he had bought for the cameras. On a personal note, can I just thank the many dozens of Palace Confidential fans who I saw today, either shouting out, waving, or even actually got the chance to meet in person. There was Bernadette, Diane, Teresa, Leonard, May, Francis. I mean, almost too many of you to mention. It's always really, really nice to hear from you, and I shall pass on your admiration for Joe's patience and Richard's socks.
King Charles received a very warm welcome in Canada this week, and we've got a lot of very loyal, lovely Canadian viewers who are watching the show. So what did you make of the reception he got?
Oh, it was a terrific reception, and I think it really played to what very strong themes which are going on in North America and in Canada in particular. First of all, of course, it was the King's first visit as monarch, and they're very particular about the fact that in Canada, Charles is King of Canada. He's not the King of England on an overseas trip. He's coming home, and in fact, he was greeted on multiple occasions by the phrase, welcome home. And I think that was a key to the whole thing, but also, of course, the underlying current in this brief visit, and it was only 24 hours, was the sort of rebuke, if that is the right word, that he was delivering to President Trump's ambitions to annex Canada, a vital part of the British Commonwealth, as its 51st, as America's 51st state.
It's interesting, isn't it, Richard Eden? Because royal commentators, including Rebecca English, have written about Charles walking this so-called political tightrope in Ottawa. How do you think he's done with that?
I think he's done very well. I mean, it genuinely has been a tightrope, because at the same time as this visit, British government is keen to keep the new American president, Donald Trump, on side. So that's the challenge for the King. And I think, I wouldn't underestimate it, I think he has played a big role in trying to calm tensions, frankly. And you'll notice that Trump has piped down a bit recently. You know, he had Mark Carney at the White House, but he does seem to have toned down the rhetoric a lot. And I think the King's played a part in that, because Donald Trump is, he loves the royal family and is looking forward to visiting Britain. So I think he is more and more aware of those sensitivities.
But it's not a neutral statement, is it, to rush there on a seemingly short notice planned state visit?
Absolutely not. I mean, it was done deliberately in response to Trump's ambitions. And I hear what Richard says, but it shouldn't be forgotten that on the moment that the King arrived in Canada, Trump was tweeting or posting messages on True Social about how he hopes that Canada will join the Golden Dome defense mechanism that he wants to erect all over the United States, which he says would be free for Canadians if they become the 51st state. So the rhetoric hasn't dialed down from the White House quite yet.
No, and it's so interesting, isn't it? Because obviously we're really proud of the politically neutral space the royal family has, and and needs to have. But inevitably, in these sorts of world situations, you will be dragged into these discussions one way or another.
And it's extremely difficult for members of the royal family, because however we like to phrase them as international statesmen, they're not. They're figureheads of a constitutional monarchy, and they're very circumscribed by what they can say and how they say it. And although we know, because Richard and I have followed Charles as an outspoken Prince of Wales for many, many years, he must have been bursting to say something more, but of course he very much reflects the wishes of both the British government and the Canadian government in what he can say.
It is tricky. So Richard Eden, what do the other members of the royal family do during times like Charles's state visit?
Well, the answer to that is as little as possible. You know,
that sounds nice.
It's an important sort of geopolitical visit. It's important for Britain and for Canada. So generally, other members of the royal family don't do anything to take the headlines away. But what we've seen this week is that doesn't affect ex-working royals like Harry and Meghan.
I was going to say, who could you be referring to?
So it wasn't just the King making a foreign visit this week, it was Harry, who, this was quite a surprise, he turned up in Shanghai, China. So we're all wondering, you know, what's he doing there, visiting this communist, in my opinion, appalling regime? Well, he was there for a tourism conference. He's involved in this, it's not a charity, but it's an organisation, Travelist, which is all involved in
the eco-travel.
So he got on his jet and racked up a few more air miles to get over to this conference in China. But obviously that's sensitive. He's done it when the King is in Canada. But also, I would say it's very interesting. I'd love to know more about why he's there. Is he forging new business links? You know, we know that he and Meghan are very keen to make a lot of money.
Do you see that as something provocative, Richard Kay, or just coincidence?
I think it is. On this occasion, it's coincidence. The King's visit to Canada was, in royal terms, scheduled at the last minute. Certainly it was not in the royal planning 6 months ago when most royal visits are planned. I mean, Princess Anne was also out and about on the day that the King was in Canada. Quite rightly so. We'll probably be discussing that a bit later on, the visit that she was on. And I think it is difficult to completely coordinate all diaries when you get a sudden addition, like you've got to go and open the Parliament in Ottawa.
I guess the Uber critics might say that, you know, he was flying commercial. He could have read the room and cancelled that trip.
He could have read the room. He could have done it on Zoom.
Yeah.
I mean, did he really have to travel all that way for a meet and greet? Because that's what it looked like.
Let's be clear, we've seen Harry on this video calls so many times. I mean, to take an example, the Diana Awards. I remember once he was in some lovely chalet on a ski holiday with various rich friends, and you saw him in this chalet chatting to the winners of the Diana Award. So on that occasion, he felt fine to do it from video. He didn't want to interrupt his holiday.
No.
But in this case, he's felt the need to fly over to China. So
I think what we've come to learn about Harry over the last 5 years is Harry will do what suits Harry.
Yeah, I think you're right. But let's just go back to this state visit for a second, Richard Kay. You've been on a lot of them. What is it like? And do you have a standout memory from one?
Well, state visits are usually longer than 24 hours. The interesting thing about this flying visit by the King and Queen is that they remained, I'm told, by Buckingham Palace on UK time. So one of the problems you get on a tour where you're, say, 8 or 9 hours away from the UK, you've got to adjust your body. And on this occasion, they knew they simply weren't going to have enough time to do that. So credit to the King, who's still having cancer treatment. Credit to the Queen, who's come to this life late in life, in her 70s, where she's sort of on permanent public show. And yet they had to sort of, subsume their natural tiredness and fatigue and to carry out a full day and a bit of engagements. For my own memories of the last time I think I went to Canada with Charles, he was then Prince Charles and he was still married to Diana, so his previous wife. It was shortly before the couple separated, and they were always very popular in Canada, and the royals like going to Canada. It's a home from home for them. And I remember that one of the engagements was opening a new hospital, and perfectly straightforward, standard royal visit. They're opening a hospital, and they went into a ward, and then all the beds are laid out, and they're apparently patients all sitting there or in bed under the covers, and Diana, I think, chats to some of them. She sat on the table, sat on a couple of beds. Anyway, afterwards, after the royals had gone, we discovered that all the patients were actors. And
Hey?
the hospital wasn't actually technically ready, so they couldn't actually have real patients.
It sounds a bit North Korean, doesn't it?
Did
It
Diana
does.
know about this?
No, it emerged afterwards. It was hilarious. It made a very funny story, of course. And these guys revealed to us, yeah, we're just actors. And they pulled back the bedclothes and they were fully clothed. They weren't in pajamas or waiting for operations.
I'm just absolutely, that is quite a story. But of course, that was also, was it not the trip where we got that amazing bit of footage that became so synonymous with Diana, with the boys running into her arms?
Yeah, fantastic. I'm not sure who ran, Diana or William and Harry, but they were meeting after several days apart on the Royal Yacht Britannia. It's a historic piece of footage.
And because it was so different for the royals at the time to be that tactile with their kids in
swooping them up
public,
off,
yeah. It's fascinating, wasn't it? Then jaws dropped as our experts reacted to that video from Meghan Markle.
Mama, let me see you get gone. Baby mama, this shot's on. Been pregnant for way too long. I tell the DJ, turn it off. Turn it off.
If she a baby mama,
Go ahead.
she gon' do that baby mama.
Work.
She gon' put it on you. She gon' do that baby mama. Drop
Drop it down, low.
This must, I mean, look, you're in the know, you're always plumbed in, but did this come as a surprise to you?
Absolutely. And as you know, Luke, I don't always like to make Harry and Meghan the focus of my discussions, but there is no way now of getting out of it this week. It was extraordinary. So I'd written a story yesterday afternoon about Lilibet's birthday, just because Meghan had posted in the morning, UK time, two quite sweet black and white photographs of her and Lilibet to mark her 4th birthday. Strangely, 8 hours later, she then posted 2 of her husband. And I did wonder at the time whether that was prompted by people remarking online that the pictures were of her and not of Harry. But, live and let live. And then an hour later, I got an email from my news desk saying, look, you just might want to change the intro of your story, because if you've seen the video of, there's no other way of putting it, of Meghan twerking while pregnant. And I think I just sent an email back going, what? With like about 4 question marks, because I'd only just looked at her Instagram about an hour earlier just to make sure I'd got the facts correct for my story. Refreshed it, and lo and behold, it's exactly what my news desk said. I mean, there was genuinely, it's not often I say my jaw hit the floor, but it did in this case. I mean, I've never seen a video like it.
I assumed it was sort of artificial intelligence generated, because
Yes.
there's been so many of those entertaining videos recently. I thought it was one of those. I couldn't believe it was them, but it is.
From non-working royal to twerking royal then.
Yeah.
Very good, Luke.
She's certainly gone. But Rich, I mean, look, we always want to try and be fair on this programme. We want to try and present a balance. And, there'll be some people who watched that video and thought, oh, it's nice. They wanted to show something fun. They, wanted to present a different side to them. And indeed, we know that this is becoming a bit of a trend on social media. What was your opinion?
Yeah, so my teenage daughter this morning, when she watched it, she said, that's no big deal. All the pregnant women were doing it back at that time around 2020, 21. It was a popular song video that went viral of Baby Mama, and people were dancing. So that was the context. And in fact, Harry actually mentions it in his memoirs, Spare, that they kind of danced in the maternity room. But it's just so unusual, isn't it? It's not what you expect to see from members of the royal family.
It's something that pops up online. It pops up in the comments sometimes in Palace Confidential. I know that. There's always been conspiracy theories around Meghan's pregnancies and children. We're not going to dwell too much on those, but do you think it will quell those conspiracy theorists by releasing videos like this?
I do seriously wonder if Meghan has wanted to address the conspiracy theories, because look what's happened recently. She published that mood board on Instagram where she had a picture of her. She wasn't wearing many clothes at all, showing off her huge baby bump, and that was with Archie, I think, the bump, wasn't it? Yeah. And then, soon after, we've seen this video as well. And so that I think that is possibly addressing those conspiracy theories. But I mean, let's look at why this was released. I mean, this is why I find this so wrong in many ways. Not because, look, it's a laugh. We've all done funny videos. My goodness, if you look through my phone, you can probably find all sorts.
We look forward to that afterwards.
Yeah, absolutely.
But the point is, she has published it. Meghan has broadcast this to mark the 4th birthday of her daughter. But then, it's not about her daughter. It's just all about her. And where has she broadcast it? It's on the Instagram page that she created to promote her business. It's all commercial. It's all about making money. And she really is trying to, commercialise those children.
Rebecca, the privacy issue is interesting, isn't it? It is I think, hard to square, because when we've been told so much about how they want the media to respect their privacy and how they want to live their lives in private, and then videos like this come, it's a hard one to square, I think, for a viewer sometimes.
Yes, and I think a lot of people will see this being very hypocritical. I have to say, after my shock, the kind of whole South Park worldwide privacy sprung to mind as well, because of, Meghan has always said, one of the reasons why she didn't like being a member of the royal family is because she felt she was expected to deliver up pictures of her children or them in kind of private family time regularly. I would argue, actually, that's not the case. But, it's the reason why they didn't, for example, take part in official photo calls straight after the birth of Archie in the UK and when they were leaving the hospital, as many, royal couples have done in the past. Now, she says, if I'm going to do it, I want to do it on my own terms. So I'm sure she will argue that's what I'm doing. But of course, and again, I try to be even-handed. I'm a reporter, not a columnist. So I try to report the news and let people make up their own mind. But speaking as an individual, that is such a uniquely private moment between you and your partner. And I can understand them wanting to do a fun video around it. The baby was late, you do all sorts of things when that happens. You eating hot curries, going out for a walk, But to then share that with, 3 million followers on Instagram and to know that is going to be spread around the world, I simply cannot comprehend the thinking of that. Well, I can't understand why you do that.
Spare a thought for Meghan's father. Remember that Meghan took legal action because Thomas Markle dared to make public a letter which he'd received from his daughter. So on the one hand, we've got her, obsessed with privacy and refusing even to disclose the names of the godparents of Prince Archie, and then releasing intimate videos like this on the day that her daughter was born. I don't know, to me it smacks of hypocrisy.
I also felt, sorry to interrupt Lou, but I also felt he's Richard's favourite hobby horse for the whole issue of councillors of state and things like that. When you see Harry kind of shimmying across the video like this, I thought, oh my God, you're a Prince of the United Kingdom, you're 5th in line to the throne, you're still a councillor of state who could be called, potentially, to stand in for your father should he ever become incapacitated. And all people are going to remember is you going like that while your wife's twerking in the background. I don't want to be po-faced. Like Richard said, we've all got videos of us at 2 a.m. in some friend's kitchen having had far too much to drink, dancing around.
Again, I want to see those later, Rebecca, please.
But, and I'll be honest, in my case, probably more than once. But, I would never post those on social media. And I'm not even a public figure. I'm not anybody interesting. I can't imagine the mentality that would make someone want to do that.
We'll wrap this particular conversation up with a post that Richard made yesterday that went a little bit viral. Why don't you tell people what you said?
Oh no, I just said, look, if the Princess of Wales ever, posts a video like this, I'm giving up the royal commentary altogether. But I do think, what's important for the royal family is dignity. I think you do have to maintain some dignity and decorum. Yes, that might sound a bit stuffy or whatever, but what are the royals for? Originally they were there to sort of lead us into battle. They're there to represent us. But you expect some dignity. It would be the same for an American president or something. So, I don't want to see videos of Donald Trump twerking in the same way I don't want to see, members of the royal family. And this is not a first either. You might remember we've seen Meghan squatting on Ellen DeGeneres' programme when she was on there. That was pretty undignified. What else? We've seen, Harry joking around with James Corden. We've seen, Meghan's exaggerated curtsy on their Netflix series. I mean, it's just all these things that stick in the mind and you think,
And yet, people like Queen Elizabeth were able to do things that were amusing and funny and slightly out of her usual box when she was alive. Obviously, the James Bond skit we had. She did that funny thing with Harry to publicise Invictus Games, the whole boom comment. But they were done in a dignified way, and they were chosen very carefully and in a very, very controlled manner and not done very often either as well. So when she did them, they had much more effect.
Yeah, there's nothing undignified about dancing, let's be clear, it's great, dance. But
you are definitely showing us those videos later, Richard.
And there are some great videos or photographs of King Charles dancing as well sometimes.
Oh, he's a great dancer.
I think we did a montage once.
We have done a montage of him dancing. We
Yeah.
all, of course, remember the late Princess Diana dancing with John Travolta. There's lots of great scenes of the royals dancing over the years. That's nothing new.
No, but it's about the context, isn't it? That's the key thing.
Okay, I'm going to keep this one short. In June, I went to Royal Ascot and I saw the royal family in person. Deal with it.
A show with a difference this week. We are coming to you direct from Ladies' Day at Royal Ascot, one of the biggest events in the summer social calendar for Britain. And joining me today, I'm Jo Elvin, of course. Joining me today with all the royal comings and goings and all the fashion fabulousness is the Daily Mail's royal editor Rebecca English and Claire Chisotti, who is the editor of the Mail Online Royals channel. Welcome to you both.
Brilliant, amazing to be here. I mean, look at this view, Jo.
I'm looking. And it's only going to get more colourful, more crowded and more eventful. What do we think?
And possibly more noisy as well.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. So do remember, if you're not already, do subscribe to the Daily Mail Royals channel where you'll get to see this and all the other amazing videos and royal content that we produce. Now that housekeeping's out of the way, let's get to my panel. Royal Ascot. Rebecca, a little while, not so long from now, we're going to be seeing a lot of royals riding right behind us, right where we're standing, aren't we?
Literally, where we're coming behind us, where the procession takes place, yeah.
That's incredible.
Round the parade ring.
Now, it's definitely for me, Claire, and I know it is for you, one of the biggest treats of Royal Ascot is all the fantastic fashion. So what are you expecting to see from the royal family?
I think it's going to be a really good turnout today. I think we've got some great royals coming. Beatrice never, ever disappoints me at the moment.
She's your favourite, isn't she?
She's so my favourite.
Yeah.
I love her. I love her style. When she comes out, she always just looks fabulous. She gets her hat right. She gets her dress right. Zara could come out fighting today, I reckon.
It's a Royal Ascot jewel out there on the parade.
The last 2 days have been, she's looked nice, but last year she looked incredible. And I'm thinking there might be an incredible one today.
That is actually, I don't like that as a compliment. You look nice. I hope she gets a little bit more of an estimation from you.
I think I think she's in the carriage. I think she saved the best till last type thing. I mean, I know it finishes on Saturday, but I think it will be a fantastic outfit today.
Well, we know we're going to get a lot more into the fashion as the afternoon progresses, but Royal Ascot was, of course, also a really important occasion for our late Queen Elizabeth II. Now, you probably don't need evidence of that, but if you do want to have a look at her watching her horse Estimate win his Gold Cup in 2013.
Her Majesty the Queen only presents 2 trophies during Royal Ascot, and look at the delight there, the sheer joy. Magnificent scenes, the crowd seeing that as well on the big screen and responding with laughter and with applause.
There she is with her racing manager, John Warren. I mean, she
brings
looked thrilled,
back
didn't she?
Yeah. That really brings back memories.
Her presence still looms large over this whole event, doesn't it? She's still so missed.
Absolutely. I mean, she was the epitome of Royal Ascot and the epitome of racing. I mean, it wasn't just an interest or a hobby for her. It was an absolute passion. She knew everything from the bloodlines of the horses to their form as they kind of go down the track. It was in her DNA.
Imagine that the Queen probably wanted to talk about little else. If you didn't know much about horses, it might have been a bit tough at dinner parties. What do you think?
Well, Prince Philip, didn't he, famously said about Princess Anne that if it didn't eat hay or fart, she wasn't interested in it. And I think that's just, we know pretty sure where we know she got that from.
Well, it was a very important occasion for Queen Elizabeth, but it is one that we have seen Charles and Camilla really embrace as well.
Hugely. I think there was actually quite a worry in the racing industry that when Queen Elizabeth passed away, would the royal family embrace this sport of kings in the same way? But I think absolutely is the answer. And I think a lot of that is down to Queen Camilla. The Prince of Wales then, King Charles now, has always loved the racing, but he would come for a couple of days and then go off and work. She is here. She's like, we are going to be here, darling, every single day.
But you know why that is, don't you? Because she's got the best hat game in the royal family business. And so I think, you don't want to miss an opportunity.
But she loves
to bust out a different hat every day.
True, but she loves the horses as well. I mean, she's been getting, beefing up the royal stud with her own horses. She's getting really into the bloodlines, and always they desperately hope for a winner.
Well, I mean, we say it's not a competition, but nobody ever beats Camilla with the hat for me. Never, ever, ever. Anyway, moving on. Now, Will Aikenhead is the head of corporate affairs here at Royal Ascot. Now, he sat down with us a little earlier on to tell us much more about the connection between this incredible festival and the royal family.
We've had great weather all week, first 2 days. We're here on the third day, Gold Cup Day, Royal Ascot. 65,000 people expected to enjoy the sunshine and some brilliant racing and everything that goes with it. It goes all the way back to 1711 when Queen Anne rode out from Windsor Castle and found this stretch of land that she thought would be perfect for horses to gallop on, and how right she was. Now here we are with putting on top-class, world-class racing. Both Their Majesties the King and the Queen shown a huge interest since they've taken over, and it's been brilliant. They've had runners, obviously the really poignant moment in 2023 when Desert Hero won for them on this very day that 2 years ago. So they've really embraced it. They've had runners all over the country. They've been to other racecourses as well. They're following it. They go to Newmarket and see their horses in training, and the breeding side of things as well. So they've really embraced it, picked it up, and it's been great. We're expecting nearly 300,000 people through the gates this year, which is up on last year, and a huge part of that is people want to come and see the royal family. It's a chance to get up close that they wouldn't have elsewhere, and it's a huge part of the day, hugely important to our guests, and long may that continue.
Will Aikenhead there, as we mentioned, always a great occasion for fashion and the royal family. Now, Claire, let's talk about Sophie, the Duchess of Edinburgh, who never seems to put a fashion foot wrong these days. What did you think about her outfit yesterday?
I thought her outfit was fabulous yesterday. It was Susanna London. She's worn her both days. I think she has done a bit of the Princess of Wales where she's found her designer, and Susanna London is that designer. In fact, the outfit yesterday was the Clara two-piece bespoke, absolutely stunning. Emmy shoes, the hat was fabulous. She's not putting a foot wrong really, no, and I think it's Susanna London who is kind of basically the reason why.
And Susanna London is really a massive go-to for a lot of race goers. I see her name popping up all the time here. But we talked about Camilla earlier, Rebecca. Queen Camilla, she really is continuing this strong fashion run, isn't she? What can you tell us about what she's been wearing?
Well, I thought she looked particularly fantastic on day one, on Tuesday, the opening day of Ascot, in Dior.
See, and I think Dior is her designer.
Yeah, that's well. She's got a few pieces now, but that's quite a raising of her game onto an international level. And she looked incredible in that Philip Tracy hat. The second day she was wearing a real favourite of hers, Anna Valentine, and again with a Philip Tracy hat. And you're absolutely right. I think there's very few members of the royal family that wear a hat as well as Queen Camilla. And for her, the bigger the better.
Indeed, and I'm here for it. Now, there's also been a fashion double act, a mother-daughter double act, hasn't there, with Beatrice and Sarah Ferguson?
So they arrived and on day one, and Sarah Ferguson wore a beautiful navy suit, looked stunning actually, and Beatrice, my favourite, Princess Beatrice, wearing Beulah, London, it was divine. That whole suit, it actually looked better than the model wearing it on the website.
Wow.
It just fitted her beautifully. The colour, pink and white gingham, you wouldn't think with a redhead would look so fabulous.
Oh no, I think that's a complete myth that redheads can't wear pink.
Well, she proved
go
it.
for it, redheads.
She definitely proved them all wrong because she looked fabulous. I love the whole outfit. I'm very excited about her outfit today. Olivia Buckingham should be working her magic, that's for sure.
Oh, that's exciting.
And I think what was nice about the Duchess of York's outfit is that I think that navy blue was actually a beautiful foil to her daughter, and I did wonder if that was a kind of mother gesture to her daughter to let her daughter shine.
Yeah.
I mean, it's only me theorising, but I suspect it would be. They're very close.
She does definitely adore her daughters,
Yeah.
doesn't she? That's
Yeah.
very palpably obvious. Speaking of daughters, can we please have a moment for Zara Tindall, who I think also always knocks it out of the park? What do you think?
Absolutely, and she will be in the carriage procession. I've just had the list come through.
Oh, okay.
And her and her husband Mike will be in the carriage procession, which is why I think Claire is right. We'll see her dress game go up a notch, because the last few days she's been here as a private individual, admittedly in this parade ring behind us, seen giving her uncle King Charles a kiss, but she's officially there. And I think, again, I personally don't know who her stylist is, but whoever it is, they do a fantastic job.
I don't envy the men in their morning suits today. We're standing out here. It's 31 degrees in Britain today, which is just incredible. So I think the bigger, the wider the hats, the better for the royal family.
Yes, exactly.
But now, sticking with the family for just a moment, there may well even be a new member popping along soon. That seems to be the speculation mounting, doesn't it?
Oh, I'm dying to talk about Harriet Sperling's outfit. I'm grabbing the mic off Rebecca. We saw a glimpse of her from the carriage. We saw this beautiful A1 Golding kind of straw boater. We didn't really see the outfit, and then she stood and we saw the outfit full length. It was Susanna London again.
Again, yes.
It was beautiful. It was cream. It was elegant. She was wearing Emmy shoes, Emmy clutch. I mean, she was dressed head to toe like a royal. I mean, it's like she's been to royal school and say, this is what you're going to wear. You're going to wear Emmy shoes. You're going to wear an Emmy clutch and beautiful Susanna London outfit. And it was called the Harrogate. I don't know if it was because it was a play on words for her name, Harrogate, but that was the suit that she wore,
Excellent.
two-piece. It was beautiful.
I like your thinking there. Now, what can you tell us? What should we read into Harriet being part of a royal procession?
Quite a lot, actually, I would say.
It's so
and normally I'm one to play these
Yeah.
things down, but actually, no, not in this case. I should explain, I don't think we have, that Harriet Sperling is Peter Phillips's girlfriend of the last year. He is the son of the Princess Anne, the Princess Royal. His first marriage ended in divorce, and he had a very serious long-term girlfriend before that. And then Harriet popped up, much to our surprise, about a year ago. And they've been quite quiet and got on with it. And then suddenly, in fact, we were filming together, Joe, on Tuesday.
Oh, right.
A special will come out hopefully on our Daily Mail Royals channel in a few weeks' time. And I think I remember saying to you, hold on a minute, I've just got the carriage list through for Ascot. And I could see her there.
That's
and I was
right.
like,
Yeah.
this, guys, is a story. You're going to have to break off for a minute because I need to get in touch with the office. So I do think it's a sign of the seriousness of the relationship. I mean, people often use royal seal of approval. I think they use that a bit sparingly. The fact is, if he said to her, look, thank you very much, Uncle, for allowing me in the carriage procession, and I would love to bring my partner, they wouldn't really say no.
Of course, but it's also a daunting invitation to accept, because
Absolutely.
at the minute you're in that royal procession, people like us are going to be going, what's going on?
All eyes will be on you.
Yeah.
And actually, that's where I think Claire is right, that she carried it off with aplomb. It was as if she was to the manor born, and I think she's definitely one to watch for us.
Do we think Princess Anne approves?
I would say she wouldn't be here if she didn't. So.
I think the way she carries herself and seeing them talking in the royal box, they were very friendly. Princess Anne, I mean, she doesn't smile all the time, but she was definitely smiling at the beautiful Harriet in that beautiful outfit.
I love that measured statement from you there, Claire.
And I think as well, it's worth
smile all the time.
It's worth pointing out, I think she's a bit of a breath of fresh air to the royal family. She actually is a nurse working in our NHS system, so I think that's very much to be welcomed.
That must be such a strange juxtaposition to go from working on the wards to then suddenly you're in the royal procession in a carriage.
And again, I think it just only emphasised how well she's made that transition. Well done on her.
All eyes will be on you today, Harriet. Best of luck with that. Now, we did ask you earlier in the week to give us some of your Royal Ascot themed comments, and boy, you didn't let us down. Thank you so much for those. We have got a couple of questions here for you. Gabes asks, which royals have a horse running at Ascot this year? Very good question. Rebecca, what can you tell us?
Well, the King and Queen do have a number of runners. They haven't been very successful so far this week. They were their favourite. Their horses, the two races they were running in, they were the favourites. I think people like to back the Monarch's horse. And I think they came in maybe 7th and 9th. So, not terrible, because it's a big field here at Royal Ascot. But I think they were really hoping for a win. They've got a few more runners later on this week. But, that, as I say, is the joy of horse racing, because you can be a king or a queen and you've still got no say in whether your horse wins or not.
Well,
so
you're the one, you won some money yesterday, didn't you?
I was actually here at Ascot as a guest yesterday.
So I think we need some tips from Rebecca.
£15.30 I'll have
you go.
know.
It won't
I'll buy
change
you a drink later.
It won't change her. Tell me. Now, Rob asks, can you do a blurb about the carriages for Ascot and where they come from? I know we saw them for Trooping the Colour, but they are just so fascinating to see. It's very true, isn't it? What can you tell us about those, Rebecca?
Well, they're beautiful. They are the Royal Landau, and they have been used at Ascot and also for state events for generations. And they're just so beautiful and so elegant, and you know, when you see them close up, they have, you know, the incredible livery and the incredible paintwork on them, bearing, you know, the crests and motifs of the monarchy. And I think it just gives that procession down from Windsor Castle to Royal Ascot is just such part and parcel of what makes this race event so special
and so glamorous.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I should maybe explain that the royal family tend to have lunch at Windsor Castle with their guests, and then they start off at, you know, kind of, you know, 10 to 2ish, 5 to 2.
I can't imagine that's the most comfortable ride, clip-clopping along on British roads in a carriage.
And actually, more worryingly than it being uncomfortable is the wind, and the ladies often suffer with their hats. You'll often see them literally hanging onto their hats.
Oh my goodness!
Even though they're well secured.
I'd love a breeze today.
But you know, they try. What they do is they ride down from Windsor Castle to Ascot, and the crowds line. I think everyone cheers as they go past, and then they literally come into this amazing parade ring, and they take that little circuit round.
I really can't wait for that. Yeah.
I mean, we are literally within touching distance.
That's so exciting. Now, we also have some very special content about royal carriages coming up on the Daily Mail Royals channel very soon. I promise it won't be too far away, so do keep your eye out for that. And as I said earlier, subscribe to the channel, and then you won't miss the reminder when it's finally out. There you go.
There you go, and they'll see how close you got to one of these Royal Landaus,
Indeed.
Joe.
No, you're supposed to. It's a surprise. It's a secret.
I can't keep secrets.
Now, we got this in from Gwyn Sobral. I hope I'm saying that right. One of my favourite pictures from Ascot was Diana and Fergie using their umbrellas to catch the attention of a friend walking in front of them. Not sure Buckingham Palace approved, but it was a good giggle. Does anyone at Palace Confidential remember this or know any backstory from that day? Well, our producers actually asked Daily Mail's veteran royal writer and friend of Palace Confidential, Richard Kay, who was covering the royals all the way back then. Oh, he must be a vampire. He must be. He said that it was Ladies' Day in 1987, and that the people that Fergie and Diana were trying to catch the attention of were friend of Fergie's, Lulu and Hugh Lindsay, the Queen's equerry. Now, he was actually tragically killed in the Closters avalanche the following March. But it's funny because, like, while the playing with the umbrellas might seem sort of like innocent and low-key to us now, it was quite the scandal back then. With Charles reported to have told Diana off for this very unroyal behaviour. Claire, it was a big story at the time, wasn't it?
It was a huge story at the time. I think I was at the Daily Mirror, obviously a long time ago in 87, and I remember it being on every single front page. I remember this, it kind of caused a bit of a scandal, actually. I think those front pages went on for a couple of days, if you get my drift. But you've got to remember that Diana married when she was 20. This happened when she was 27. She was so young.
She was, but that's still 7 years of royal protocol, isn't it?
It's 7 years of royal protocol.
Yeah, I know, well, really.
But there was probably a bit of rebellion, maybe, with her new kind of friend to play with, Sarah Ferguson, who was then the Duchess of York.
Yes.
And she was probably overexcited about the fact that she actually had someone to talk to.
It just particularly with our mates, don't
that's
we?
I think it just doesn't seem like a big deal to us, does it?
Yeah.
But in royal life, it's a big deal.
Yeah, I mean, it probably wasn't ideal, but then, you know, you could argue that it also attracted probably a new legion of fans to the royal family, that they had these two young, glamorous, attractive, high-spirited young women who were in this kind of like slightly more older staid institution. So I think in the long run, it wouldn't have done them any harm whatsoever.
Well, I have to say thank you, Gwyn, for that question, because I certainly learned a lot. I didn't actually know, growing up in Australia, that one had passed me by, but I love that story. Now, feel free to put more questions and comments below in this video, and particularly because this is a slightly different kind of show for us, we'd love to know your feedback and what you think. We might do more. Let's get back to my panel now, and the story that has obviously been dominating the headlines for the front pages in the UK today is Katherine, Princess of Wales's last-minute absence from Royal Ascot yesterday. Rebecca, you were here yesterday. Can you tell us about the story and how it unfolded?
Yeah, it's a story I definitely didn't expect to be writing for the Daily Mail yesterday. So we were pretty certain the Princess of Wales was coming. In fact, we were told that she was coming. The Prince of Wales was actually presenting the trophy to the winner of the Prince of Wales stake, so it was a very natural day for them to be here together. The carriage list came out as normal at 12 o'clock, and lo and behold, they were in the second carriage. Then suddenly at 22 minutes past 12, I can remember it very distinctly, we suddenly got a message from Kensington Palace to basically say, well, she's now not coming, and that it was a bit of an error, and that it shouldn't have been announced that she was. But obviously, understandably, because people are very fond of her and they've been very concerned about her over the last year, it did spark a lot of concern that it seemed to be such a last-minute pulling out.
Yeah.
The Palace explained that we've always said that although she'd be returning to royal duties this year, following the great news that she's now in remission from cancer, that it would be a slow and a measured approach, and that some weeks we'd see her quite a bit and some weeks that we wouldn't.
Yeah.
And that it was already part of the rhythm of that. But obviously it didn't stop people speculating and worrying.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, obviously the Palace, Claire, was very keen to downplay things, but any time that something like that happens, and particularly in that sudden way, people worry.
Yeah, I mean, for the first terrifying few seconds when I saw the story break, I was like, oh God, we're not there again, are we? But
yeah.
I saw William and I saw her mother Carol, and they both looked very relaxed and they both looked very happy. Carol came with James Middleton's wife, Elitze, and they were all having such a great day, and I'm thinking, well, if there's anything really badly wrong, I don't think Carol would have been here.
Right.
William might have had to, put his shoulders back and get on with it. I don't know. But them looking so relaxed made me relax, if that makes sense.
That's an interesting point, yeah. Now, Rebecca, though, the occasion it does recall it recently is when there was a row over Katherine, whether or not she would appear at the Irish Guards.
And I think that's why people were so jittery, because cast our mind back a year ago when we know she'd gone into hospital and would be taking several months off to recover, but the family hadn't yet felt they were in a position to explain why that was taking longer than everyone expected, and that's perfectly understandable. She needed to get her own health and her own ducks in a row, and as she herself said, she needs to tell her children. But of course the general public, you remember that awful period of speculation, some of which was pretty disgusting, especially the kind of social media trolling of her. And we had quite a nervous period where William suddenly pulled out of attending his godfather, King Constantine of Greece's memorial service, with very little explanation at the last minute. And then shortly after that, we had a situation where the Ministry of Defence announced, because the Irish Guards were trooping the colour that year, that Katherine would take the salute on a pre-trooping event. And again, Kensington Palace reacted quite quickly and said, no, that's very premature, you shouldn't have said that, it won't be confirmed till nearer the time. And again, we were all, well, there's no reason for them not to announce it because it is her regiment.
Yes.
So again, it made people quite nervous. And I think lessons have probably been learned from those experiences. But I think, again, that's why people got a little bit jittery yesterday.
It's interesting, isn't it, Claire, because obviously the Walesers were out in force, lots of friends and family here. And if we're honest, it's not a terribly regular event for the Princess of Wales anyway.
Yeah, I mean, she takes part, you'll see her probably once in the Royal Week at Ascot. She's not like Queen Camilla, who loves the horses and would be here for 2 weeks if it went on for 2 weeks. But she always kind of, before her illness, we used to see her possibly once a week, never more than once, I don't think. Do you?
I think some years she's been twice. But
yeah, it's never the same day. She can come on she comes on a Friday or she'll come on a Tuesday, so but not seeing her yesterday was really disappointing. But we have to we had lots of other lovely surprises.
I mean, the thing is, she's been looking amazing, and I think people are disappointed mostly because she has had an otherwise very public week, hasn't she? And people always get excited to see what she's up to.
Yeah, and I think you have to take the idea of their speculation, disappointment in the most positive sense.
Yes.
Because people love her. They love seeing her at events like this. And she, again, I love the outfit she wears to Royal Ascot. She always really cuts a very Audrey Hepburn, My Fair Lady look, I think.
So what else has she been up to this week?
Well, yeah, so I said that I think it's disappointment, but people have seen her kind of 3 times in recent days.
Yeah.
We saw her undertake an engagement with the Victoria and Albert Museum, which she's patron. Last week we've had her at Trooping the Colour on Saturday, and then at the Order of the Garter ceremony where I was on Monday at Windsor Castle. So I think people were just like, oh wow, we're going to see her again, and obviously they're just a bit disappointed when they don't. But I just wanted to stress that I've spoken to Kensington Palace today, and they've really effectively said, please do not panic. Like, it is genuinely just one of those things.
Okay.
And everyone should relax.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? She was looking absolutely exquisite at Trooping the Colour, and Princess Charlotte stole your look, by the way. I just kind of feel like I want to see a side by side of
I'm doing
those
a royal
outfits.
rewear again
Absolutely,
today. You noticed?
looking gorgeous. But she did seem to be suffering from hay fever at Trooping the Colour, and it's a rather floral place, this one as well, isn't it?
Well, I can tell you, and Joe will know from bitter experience here, I have to say, when we filmed our Daily Mail Royals live VE Day commemorations from there, the pollen that comes down from these plane trees, it looks like it's snowing in the background.
I thought
it's
people
so
were
bad.
exaggerating when they warned us about it, but yeah.
It is. I mean, we were picking it out of our hair and our clothes for like days afterwards, and a few of them, I know Queen Camilla suffers from hay fever quite badly as well, so who knows? I mean, it'd be wrong to speculate, but what I have been told is just be assured everything's fine.
Yeah. Okay, well, we mentioned Peter Phillips's girlfriend Harriet Sperling earlier. She was wearing a hat by A1 Golding, who is a brilliant milliner and fast becoming an absolute favourite of royals, celebrities and other VIPs. We caught up with her a little bit earlier to talk about what it's like to actually dress royalty.
Royal Ascot is the Oscars of the hat world. It really is the place to come and be seen in your most beautiful hats, to show off the best kind of craft in millinery, and it's kind of the peak of my whole season. Having a royal wear one of my hats is such a huge honour, because obviously they can have the pick of anyone really. So yes, there's been a few. I don't know if we'll see any at Ascot this year, but in the past it's just the best feeling ever. The process of working with the royal, it's obviously bespoke, it's custom, so there is a back and forth process, but I can't say too much about that actually. Harriet Sperling looked amazing. So that actually came through Susanna of London, who did her fabulous dress, and we work in collaboration quite a lot. So the hat is something from one of my collections. It's called Golden Boater, and it just suited everything down to a T. Looked amazing. What the fashion this year? I don't know. It seems to be everything goes at the moment. I have really kind of my most popular styles really have been the blocked headbands all the way to like the super wide brim hats. So I can't really say that there's like one specific look people are going for, but I think color is always the key. I mean, obviously the late Queen was such an incredible hat wearer. She was a lover of millinery. She wore every single color under the sun, right up into her, her later years, and she looked fabulous. I think that embracing hats and color is 100% the way forward. She knew how to wear them.
Well, it is the moment that you and I and everybody watching Palace Confidential and everybody in this arena has been waiting for. The parade is finally coming into the Royal Circle, and Claire, here they come. Here comes His Majesty the King and Queen Camilla in the first carriage there. They're joined by the Marquis of Salisbury and the Marchioness of Salisbury as well.
Camilla looks like she's in an ice blue coat.
It's looking sort of avocado-y to me from here. Maybe I'm just got heat stroke.
Could be, but she's got one of her fabulous big hats on, so that's probably Philip Treacy.
By the way, if you are missing our Rebecca English, she had to go off and do her actual royal job, but we're hoping she might be back. But
yes, we're just playing at it.
We are missing you, Rebecca.
Second carriage is Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh.
Yep. And the Princess Royal, Princess Anne and Sir Tim Lawrence.
Then we've got Beatrice. So we know that Princess Beatrice is wearing Monique Julia with a Sarah Bradley Hall hat. And now Zara looks like she's come straight out of her comfort zone and gone monochrome.
Yes, you don't see that very often, do you? And it's super striking today on this on a very, very colourful day.
I think, as I said earlier, she's bought her fighting game. I was right. I knew it.
You're right. She's been looking nice, but today she's stepped it up.
She's looking a little Princess of Wales like?
I should never have doubted you, Claire Gisotti.
I know.
Yeah. Here we go.
Here we go.
Are we supposed to bow as the king comes past?
I don't know. Am I meant to curtsy?
Yeah, I don't know. Someone quickly tell me the etiquette.
There's Camilla. Oh my God, she looks stunning.
Here they come.
She looks stunning. We're waving. Oh my God, it's ice blue.
You were right.
I was
Beautiful
right.
ice blue.
Ice
Wonderful.
blue. And then we've got Sophie, who looks fabulous. Also, I think...
I love Princess Anne's royal blue.
Oh, it's a beautiful
Isn't that
dress.
gorgeous?
It
The
looks very
beautiful
cool.
turquoise. Yeah. I think she's Princess Anne looking a bit like, why are all these people
and
looking
Princess
at us?
Beatrice, my favourite, looking stunning
Looking gorgeous.
in Bonnie Coolia
Yeah.
with her husband, Eduardo. Looking fabulous. And Zara.
Here we go.
I want to high five Zara Tyndall.
Yes. See if you can give her the royal
she's got drop
salute.
pearls. It's very Catherine. I love that hat.
July saw the first of 3 state visits across 2025. On this occasion, President Emmanuel Macron and First Lady Brigitte Macron of France received a welcome as warm as the British summer weather. I'm not trying to be funny, it was 20 degrees in the shade.
I love state visits. They're great. It's a chance to sort of show royalty at its finest. And
I got very stressed just looking at the table layout. I couldn't believe how many, it seems like there were thousands of pieces on that table.
Yeah, I mean, the effort that goes into that state banquet at Windsor Castle was amazing. But this is the French state visit with Emmanuel Macron, the president, and his wife Brigitte. It's the first state visit for a while, and the first one that Catherine's taken part in for quite some time.
Yep.
But it's been really significant. I've read a few people saying, oh, it's the first visit by a European leader since Brexit. But it's not really true, because we've had others. We've had the Spanish, but the Spanish head of state, for example, is the king.
Yeah.
So it wasn't the Prime Minister who came, it was the King and Queen. But of course, President of France is their head of state, so he's been here. He gave a speech talking about how the traditional entente cordiale has become entente amicale.
Okay, yeah.
So we're more friendly than just cordial these days.
Are we?
The government obviously thought
Yeah.
this visit was really important because they're very keen to improve relations with European Union after Brexit. So it's seen as a very important visit. And I think we've had glorious sunshine in London and Berkshire, and so far it's gone very well, I'd say.
Indeed. And a big occasion for King Charles, of course.
Of course, because it's so easy for us to forget that he is still undergoing cancer treatment.
Yeah.
But he's been working very hard, and unfortunately this week he had a bloodshot right eye. And the palace was keen to stress that this was nothing to do with his cancer treatment, but was just something unrelated. But it did sort of highlight the strains that he's under. But he made a very good speech. The king loves France, and that's really come across, and you get the impression that he's enjoyed the visit.
Yeah, indeed. Well, they're our neighbours, aren't they? Charlotte, lots of eyes as well on the affectionate nature between William and Catherine at the state banquet.
I know Katherine and William are so at ease with each other these days. They always have been, but they're in this new era now where they're just kind of madly in love, and they're not hiding it from us anymore. Before they could never really hold hands, and they were quite guarded, especially when the Queen was alive, about touching each other. But now they've got this real ease between them, often touching each other's backs. And Katherine gazes up into William's eyes. It's just really nice. They were completely and utterly in love. It was divine.
Well, speaking of affection, Richard, there was a couple of funny moments, wasn't there? There was one between President Macron of France and Catherine, wasn't there?
He's a cheeky one, that president.
That was quite a French laugh.
William might need to watch out, actually.
Yeah.
Well, he I think certainly likes to see himself as a sort of flirtatious type, and we did spot a wink at Catherine, as I think maybe they were doing the toast, their glasses at that point.
And he kissed her hand.
I think winking, you don't wink at our future queen, do you?
Apparently you do if you're the president of France. Yeah.
If only he and Brigitte were so close. I don't think Macron and Brigitte are as close as William and Catherine somehow at the moment.
There's been lots of talk about the body language between the French president and his wife. There was that incident as they came off an aeroplane elsewhere. And I think again here there was an incident where the president sort of put out his hand to take his wife, and she declined the offer of her husband's hand.
Maybe that's why he's looking for some affection by proxy from other people at the moment.
Maybe that's what he's doing, having a flirt with Catherine. But by contrast, Catherine and William did extend his hand to Catherine. I think she was getting off a plinth. And of course, she allowed her lovely husband to take her hand. So it really was a contrast, I thought.
And also social media was rife with chat because saying that Macron had broken protocol with that and by touching the king's back. What's your view?
Well, he's a very touchy-feely man, is Emmanuel Macron. As we know, we've seen him do these kind of things before. But I mean, generally, he hasn't been too bad. Just the odd,
is that the benchmark now? Is it not too bad?
The odd wink.
I mean, it's fine, isn't it? Is it really that big a deal?
But he did touch the Coldstream Guards back, and that is quite naughty.
Is it?
And they're supposed to shout out and say, "Hands off the King's Guard." And the man he touched did whip round, and he was going to say that, and then he stopped himself because he realised it was Macron that was touching him. They're very guarded, A, because they're guards, and B, because the tourists come round and they kind of hassle them and make faces at them. So they don't like it at all. It's not allowed.
No.
But yet Macron, the French tourist in the room, stroked his back.
I mean, anyone who's been to London as a tourist and seen the guards, on horseback, knows that you shouldn't approach, and if you do, they will shout at you.
Oh yeah, no, they can be quite aggressive. Yeah.
So the idea when the soldiers are on parade, you don't start putting your hands on them.
No, it's just what happens when you're a world leader. You just have no one ever tells you not to do something, do they?
But anyway, he's lucky that he didn't get anything painful from that soldier.
Yes, the whole thing is supposed to join nations together, not create more rifts. But Charlotte, let's move on to Catherine. This was a big appearance for her, and judging by the media coverage from across the world, a really crucial one.
It was a big, big deal. It's the first time we've seen her in a tiara for nearly 2 years. And because she's back on parade in a very, very formal capacity. And she looked fantastic. It was so nice for, everyone that loves Catherine around the world to see her back, really leading the royal family. And, doing such a formal occasion. It's a sign that she's getting better, and she's sort of also more empowered than ever. She really is starting to look regal and like a future queen in waiting.
It's incredible, isn't it?
She's been much missed at the previous state visits. Like when we had the Japanese here last summer, Catherine wasn't there because of her illness, and again with the Qataris, you might remember she met them to greet them, but didn't attend the banquet. So it's wonderful to have her in a tiara and back at the banquet again.
Well, speaking of what she's wearing, we know that Catherine would prefer we didn't focus on her outfits, but how can you not? I mean, it was just a diplomatic triumph, really, wasn't it? Full of hidden meanings.
Well, the first outfit, the Dior outfit, I thought was inspired because it's that classic Dior French silhouette. And then the state banquet outfit as well was this beautiful cape by Givenchy, by Sarah Burton, her old friend. And she also
designed her wedding dress.
Designed her wedding dress. And she also wore the Order of King Charles III, which is a small portrait of Charles that you wear on your left shoulder.
And am I right in thinking that we haven't seen that before?
No, this is the first time she's worn one of those. She has previously worn one for Queen Elizabeth II.
Yeah.
But this is the first time we've seen her wearing her father-in-law, a little tiny portrait of her father-in-law on her left shoulder. It's really, really sweet to see.
Apparently, the tiara is a bit of a favourite of Catherine's.
She loves the Lover's Knot tiara, which is the one she wore.
I think I do too.
I do. I'd quite like it.
Yeah.
Maybe she'll loan it to me one day. But Diana used to wear it a lot as well. And it's a really iconic, very, very regal tiara. She looks beautiful, and then coupled with these beautiful earrings that, of course, belong to the late Queen, and just really paints her as this sort of leader of the royal family, future Queen.
Now, just in case you've emerged from a cave recently, I have a spoiler alert. Prince Andrew had something of a really horrible 2025. In August, the pressure dial went up quite a few notches with the publication of Andrew Loney's explosive book entitled, which had the eerily prophetic subhead, The Rise and Fall of the House of York. Now, as you can imagine, our panel of experts pored over every shocking detail.
My goodness, yeah. I mean, it's been quite a sort of difficult read at times, quite sort of almost unpleasant.
Well, and even the author himself said he struggled to find people to say nice things.
Yes,
in the the interest of balance.
Mr. Lowney said he's approached, I think, literally thousands of people, talked to hundreds, but has struggled to find anyone with a good word to say about Andrew. I mean, you kind of feel that there must be a good side to him. I mean, for me, when I think of Andrew as well, I think of him as that war hero from the Falklands conflict. He was flying decoy missions, which was the most dangerous missions you could have. It wasn't like Harry in Afghanistan where he was at a base very well protected. So there's that. And the other thing that I've always admired about him greatly was that despite divorcing his wife Sarah, they've managed to stay pretty closely as a family unit, and they've raised two girls of which to be very proud. So I thought they've always been a great example of how you can split up with your other half, keep it very civil, and set a good example. So those are the good points.
So maybe Andrew Loney should have come to you for the nice things.
Well, those are the good points, but then there's lots of negative stuff, and a lot of the allegations have really been, sort of eye-wateringly revolting and explosive.
Well, speaking of, Rebecca, unsurprisingly, Andrew's links to the convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein are a huge part of the book. And this book claims that his connections go both deeper and back further than he has previously claimed.
Yeah, because I think the general acceptance is that Andrew met Epstein sometime around 1999. But Loney says actually their relationship goes back further than that, possibly even as far as 10 years that they were operating in the same circles, and that Epstein pretty much spotted straight away that Andrew could very much be a useful idiot to him. I think he
that phrase follows him around, doesn't it?
It does, yes, and describes kind of almost like, Andrew as kind of a mouse being dangled in a snake pit with him, and Andrew just not seeing what was coming down the tracks. So he's pretty revelatory and pretty scathing about Andrew's relationship with Epstein.
Well, and there's also Richard Kay, this reported scale of his appetite for sex. This is a fun conversation, isn't it? It's like particularly unedifying, including romances with Ghislaine Maxwell, and the extraordinary claim that Andrew and Bill Clinton shared a mistress. Is it fair to say that it's a weakness for Andrew?
Well, I think sex probably has been a weakness for Andrew, and I think is the operative word, because I think it was a long time ago. We don't know about the full extent of his womanising. I've read many reports over the years about what an appetite he had. Indeed, I probably wrote some of the stories 20 or 30 years ago. But he's also someone who was pretty much painted as a dull, boring man whose interests were not in the bedroom but on the golf course, on the computer screen, who didn't really have a great sophisticated skill in wooing women. It seems to me, and I think Lowney puts his finger on it, that a lot of these women were more or less proffered to him, offered up, if you like, simply because he was a prince, he could do whatever he liked. Now, whether all these allegations are true, I'm not entirely sure. I mean, one of the reasons why his marriage failed was that he was not a very attentive husband. And I'm using that in a guarded way. So I think there's a lot more to Andrew than perhaps at first sight greets the eye.
So where did this, do you remember when I was a kid back in the 80s, that the Randy Andy title that followed him around like a badge of honour almost?
Well, he was probably one of the most charismatic, I would say, of the Queen's children, wasn't he?
Well, he was the best looking at that time, in contrast with Charles and his big ears, and the rather gauche Edward. Andrew seemed to have the full package. And he was associated. I mean, I wrote endless stories about his girlfriends, who was in and who was out. And then along came Fergie. And I've got to take issue with one thing that Richard said about how he admires the fact that they've stuck together for something like 26 years after their divorce. But in many ways, she's been the reason for his downfall. And in fact, he may have been far better off absolutely jettisoning her. And I agree completely with him that they've produced two wonderful young women in Beatrice and Eugenie. They've grown up amid all this wreckage of domestic disharmony, and they've emerged as two confident, bright women. But I'm not sure that Andrew and Fergie as an item have been good for each other or for the monarchy or for Britain.
It's interesting because that's my next question to you, Richard Eden, is about Sarah Ferguson, who's also a big part of the book. Particularly her jaw-dropping spending and what Loney calls her questionable charitable activities have come under the spotlight.
Yes, true. I mean, but it is pretty old stuff. It goes back a long way, decades in some cases, and the person who's spoken about it most in the past is Sarah herself, who's written memoirs, and she's talked about. Remember, that's sort of why she got that big deal for Weight Watchers, was because she put on a lot of weight and then she lost it, and she admitted to being something of a spendthrift, I think. So, she's admitted that. But I think the thing personally I've always loved about Fergie is that she sort of bounces back, and there's always something new. I think like our readers have always wanted to read about her, because she's one of those people that there's always something happening. She doesn't let, some people, something bad happens in their life, they just get down, they don't want to move on, but she'll always bounce back and have a new project or something exciting, whatever it is to talk about.
I always feel like there's an air of chaos.
Displacement activity, that's what it is.
I don't know if it'd be chaos, but energy, perhaps you could say.
Yeah, you could. Yeah, tomato. Is it fair to say, Rebecca? I mean, what do you think will be the fallout for the Yorks, and do you think that Fergie may weather it better than Andrew and come out of it better?
That's a good point. I do think Sarah will weather it better, because I think actually both colleagues are right in their various ways that a lot of the stuff we'd read about her is stuff that we know about her. It's always very unedifying to have it all put in one place and laid out in front of you. I mean, I've written many stories back in the day about her running up huge bills in small companies in and around Windsor, where they left, kind of bills that could have put small companies out of business, So that was kind of, 15, 20 years ago, So this stuff is well trodden, but as I say, it's awkward to see it all put there together. But I don't think there's going to be anything there that people go, I didn't know. And I think Fergie's one of those people that people have tend to made up their minds by now about. I think they either think, she's a permanent car crash waiting to happen, or she's made some huge mistakes in her life. But actually, as Richard said, she's always bounced back and, is now a bit of a kind of national treasure. I think you pays your money and you takes your choice. I think Andrew, it's less certain on, because of course, some of the charges laid at his feet are verging on the criminal. I have been over the years. And while nothing's ever been, expressly proved against him, there is a huge cloud hanging over his head. And I don't think this will ever go away, And it's a reminder, I think, why the royal family are in such a very difficult position over what to do with the problem that is Prince Andrew.
Well, we'll come to that. But Richard Kay, just harking back to what you were saying about the union of this pair and the influence it's had on the monarchy, do you think that Sarah Ferguson's a national treasure? And I wondered if you might agree with Loney's perception that she had this disproportionate control over Andrew.
I would agree with Loney's assertion that it was Fergie who's been leading Andrew in everything, if you like. I think the reason Andrew got so involved financially with Jeffrey Epstein was to help solve one of Fergie's many financial crises. He got, as we all know, he got money to pay off one of her debts. But no, I don't think she's a national treasure. I think she's a hidebound woman who has not been good, as I said, for the institution, for the monarchy. Rebecca touches on what can the royal family do, and there's very little they can actually do. He's been effectively sacked. He's the only royal prince who's been sacked from public life I can think of, short of sending him far, far away. And who would want him? I think it's very insulting when I keep reading, we could send him to the Falkland Islands as a governor. Do the people of the Falkland Islands particularly want Prince Andrew? I doubt it very much. So it's difficult to know what to do with him. He's just going to be there. I mean, they have managed it fairly well. He doesn't have any kind of public role. What else? You said in your introduction, what about stripping him of everything? Well, he's born a prince. He was given a dukedom. The one thing they could possibly remove would be the dukedom, but I think it would have to come through Parliament, and I can't see any government of any shade wanting to get involved with anything like this. It will open up a real can of worms. So what else can they do?
What about things like his vice admiralty, things like that?
Yeah, I mean, he's got honorary military titles, but does he use those anymore? They're in abeyance.
It's a hugely tricky one for them because he is there and he exists, and they can't airbrush him out that he is a member of their family.
And there is within the family, and I know this as Rebecca does, always an instinct to sort of circle the horses, circle the wagons, protect one of their own. Their first response in all these cases is, oh, it's just the press, it's the media.
Yeah.
This is different. This is a graphic book written by a figure who's got some substance in the writings he's done. And you can't just brush this away. However, it does go over a lot of old territory, and they'll just feel, I think, poor old Andrew, when's someone going to give him a break?
It's not like you to be quiet when we talk about Andrew and his titles. Richard, how do you feel?
Well, I mean, certainly what the king could do, and something I've advocated for a long while, is strip him of his role as a counsellor of state. I mean, it's easy to forget.
One, I know this is your bugbear.
No, but think about it. We're talking about Andrew, he's so appalling, he's done this, he's done that. But he and Prince Harry can still have the legal right to deputise for the king. That could easily be stripped from them, as well as his title of Duke of York or other things, if they wanted to. He's still in the line of succession. And it would take an act of parliament, but that's no big deal. The king did it recently when he extended the list of councillors of state to include Princess Anne and Prince Edward. It could be done very easily indeed. So, that's something that I would suggest strongly that he does.
There are claims in the book, now contested, I should add, about Prince Harry's relationship with Uncle Andy. What's been said about that?
God, this is so interesting and really quite mysterious as
though?
well.
Yeah.
Well, it's an incident in Loney's book that he says that Harry was upset because he caught Prince Andrew saying something behind his back. Now, certainly in the serialisation, it hasn't gone into what that was that Andrew had said. But Harry was so angry that he got in a physical fight with Andrew and punched him, left him with a black eye. Well, I should say that since publication, Prince Harry's people have put out a statement saying they deny this, it's not true, and also denying that another claim in the book, which is that Andrew had made derogatory comments about Meghan and had warned Harry about her and about her past, and had really said, are you sure you're wise to go ahead with this marriage? So very intriguing, but it has been denied. So I look forward to reading the book in a bit more detail.
Away from putting those incidents aside, the alleged incidents, Richard Kay, you can imagine that Harry and Meghan are just aghast at being anywhere near associated with these
absolutely.
claims.
I mean, I think they've done as much as they can to sort of distance themselves from the whole York fiasco as anyone else. There are similarities between Andrew and Harry. We've talked about them before. They're both second sons. They both served with distinction in the services, and they've both been lost, very lost in Andrew's case, and probably the same is true of Harry. So yes, and they will be horrified to be dragged into this, but they also have a friendship with Andrew's children, Andrew's daughters, of course, and so it is complicated. Families are always difficult. There are various dynamics at play here, but no, I don't think Harry will have been at all pleased to have been dragged into this. Do you agree?
I agree.
But what about the princesses? I mean, we've all given them glowing reviews on this very show. How must they be feeling about this book?
I'm sure they're embarrassed, and it's just
upset,
very difficult.
I think it hurts them.
Usually he's one of Harry's closest friends and family members, and they still sees Harry and Meghan. So it is hard to imagine that she would be so close to him if, Harry had been literally physically fighting with his uncle. But no, I think obviously this book's very awkward for them, and I presume they've just become just used to this sort of stuff over the past few years.
Well, we'll have more on Harry and Meghan after the comments. But carrying on with this, Rebecca, there are even more worrying claims coming out in this book that Andrew had some links to foreign spies in ways that had potentially very serious consequences.
Yes, and obviously you've seen some of this raised recently with his interactions with a Chinese spy.
Alleged
Chinese spy.
Yeah.
That hit the headlines fairly recently. But the book says that basically Andrew's behaviour has been so reckless over the years that reports have gone back on him to Russia, to China, to Libya, to Saudi Arabia, to basically any state that would benefit from hostile information about a member of the establishment or our royal family. And he says that some of the information would be absolutely catastrophic for the monarchy if it were to ever come out. So, yeah, it's pretty damning in those allegations.
What do you make of that, Richard Kay? Because in my interview with Andrew Loney, he suggested that this compromising material, were it ever to come to light, would mean the end of the monarchy. I mean, that's quite a statement.
I think that's quite a step. I'm not sure it would. I mean, don't forget, we had an exiled king who got very close to the Nazis before the Second World War. So I'm not so sure that this would have such a deleterious effect on the future of the monarchy. What we don't know, of course, is what these jaw-dropping allegations are, and what kind of information could Andrew have been privy to. Obviously, he knew stuff because of his position within the royal family and in previous years within the Ministry of Defence. But he was not a high-ranking naval officer. Was he ever given access to official secrets? Seems unlikely to me. But yeah, I suppose in the natural course of events, because of the people he met and associated with, he would have acquired quite a treasure chest of stuff.
And of course, he was a trade ambassador for many years. So how party would he have been to trade secrets that would be useful to a foreign power at the time? Very possibly. I mean, everyone who's spoken about it over the years have always said we tried to tell him as little as possible because we clearly didn't trust him.
Well, I remember that's one startling example of his skills as a diplomat was when he tried to talk out a foreign country from buying a fleet of British planes and said it'd be better off renting some. That is not your job. You're here to sell Britain.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think I agree with Rebecca. I don't know how much they entrusted him with His Majesty's government's trade policy.
But of course, any little tidbit could be very useful to a foreign power and detrimental to
I'm guessing, and we haven't seen the full book yet, but I'm guessing some of the compromat material might be to do with what he got up to in his spare time in some of these more remote parts of the world.
Which I think at one time would have been very embarrassing to the monarchy, but I think so much has come out over the years.
Yeah.
I wouldn't quite say they're immune to it, because obviously none of this is edifying for them. But I think now they feel that they have tried to kind of ring fence Andrew, and now as a private individual, and anything is his problem rather than their problem. So.
I think there is a bigger problem for the monarchy, and it's the continual drip of stuff, and I think that damages the entire institution. However much they try and separate him, they can't escape it. I mean, I don't recommend this, but if you plunge into comments underneath many of the stories which have been written in the Mail this week, you find an astonishing hostility about what this means to the monarchy itself, and that I think would worry them if they took a deep dive into this stuff.
Yeah. I imagine it probably worries William, doesn't it, Richard? If we've talked about, the king at the moment is in a difficult position, seemingly reluctant to take any decisive action. But do you think William might think differently in the long term?
Yes, I think he's more distant. Andrew is his uncle rather than his brother, and I think hopefully this will be in quite a few years to come. But I think he will take decisive action about quite a few different aspects of the monarchy. But he can't say that at the moment. So it's all quite awkward. But I think you'll find there's a lot of changes will happen.
And what do you think of this that came up in my interview with Andrew Loney, that we were talking about the question of security and the fact that Andrew still believes he needs proper police protection?
Well, I think he probably does. I mean, I should think there are people out there who would want to physically attack him and assault him, and there are nutcases
Prince
around.
Harry aside.
Harry is. This is the whole basis of Harry's case, because he felt that this country was unsafe for his wife, and I think the same must hold true for Andrew.
The one thing I would add to that is that you say there's a reluctance amongst the king to take action. Actually, I don't think there's a reluctance, but I think there's a sense of frustration about what he can do. I was speaking to someone about this fairly recently, actually, outside of anything to do with the Loney book. But I said, what is going on? And they said, well, the trouble is, Andrew is now, we've stripped him of everything we can strip him of. He can't use his HRH title, he's not a working member of the royal family. He now is a private individual. And the downside of that means we don't have very much control over him. As long as he pays the rent every month for Royal Lodge, as he's contractually entitled to do, we have no right to ask him where he's getting that money from, as long as he pays it.
I think,
as long as there's obviously no obvious criminality involved in it. So
I think it rankles the public, though, doesn't it? That he's still a duke, he's still a prince, and
he lives in a mansion. You know,
I agree with all of that, but I'm just trying to explain. I think from their point of view, they feel slightly hamstrung by what they can do now.
I think the problem is part of the issue here is the public want to see some form of punishment.
A consequence.
A consequence for his foolishness. But is it just foolishness, or is it criminality, or has he done some really very bad things? He argues that he's done nothing wrong. He says he never slept with that woman, Virginia Giuffre. But in the court of public opinion, he's been condemned. And he feels that anything like reducing him to the ranks, stripping him of Royal Lodge and sticking him in a tiny cottage on the Windsor estate is tantamount to a form of punishment, and he shouldn't receive that punishment.
And even if Richard Eden, you get your way, and he is stripped of the dukedoms and everything that goes with it, he's been at the centre of espionage incidents. He's had a stalker. He probably would still be entitled to funded police protection.
Yeah, a bit like Liz Truss. Why, an ex-prime minister for 5 weeks. I mean,
he will get lifelong. And that's one of Harry's arguments, wasn't it? That she would get lifelong protection and stuff. But Andrew gets no protection now. And actually, one of the, I hate to say ruse, but one of the kind of ways that Buckingham Palace have tried to control him is by saying, look, if you downsize from Royal Lodge and move to, say, Frogmore, you're going to be within the ring of steel that surrounds Windsor, so you'll have a certain element of protection. And actually, if you're doing that, the King will privately ensure that you have more of an allowance, because of course he's been stripped of any money now from the King. He obviously gets no public money, but he gets no private money from the King. And he might find his way to funding you with a bit more of private security. But until you do that, until you show willing, he won't do that. And I think they really thought that would force Andrew's hand. Andrew's called their bluff and said, no, trust me, I can pay the money, I don't need any of this. So this complete impasse at the moment, and where they go from here is anyone's guess. I think that what they're hoping is that Andrew will have to admit within the next couple of years, I can't afford this, and fall on his brother's mercy.
Do you think he needs to be punished, Richard?
Well, I think action certainly needs to be taken on a practical level that I've mentioned. In terms of Royal Lodge, that's a tricky one. And I think that's a problem for the royal family in general, because the natural person to move in would be Prince William and his family. But, one of William's big initiatives is the one for homelessness. And so, he doesn't want to be moving into a huge mansion.
But he is moving into a huge mansion, isn't he? He's got his new place that he's moving into.
Fort Belvedere.
No, that's not going to happen. I mean, it's been rumoured that it would happen, but I've been told it's not.
Okay, all right then, I'll shut up then. In September, Prince Harry came face to face with King Charles at Clarence House for their first meeting in 19 months. The private chinwag, which lasted exactly 54 minutes, came in the wake of the Duke of Sussex stating publicly in May that he really wanted to reconcile with his family. Our expert panel had plenty to unpack on this one.
Well, details are scant, and what is interesting is that the reason, the meeting was agreed, and clearly there were some rules set down before it happened, and one of those was that Harry had to once zip it and not rush out afterwards and give an interview. Of course, I'm sure Richard will jump in here and say it's early days and there's still time for him to betray any confidences. But so far, and it has to be said, there was a statement put out by both Prince Harry's team and, of course, by Buckingham Palace about what took place, which was they sat down for tea. Both parties have agreed to the same form of words, and there's been nothing different. The question remains is, will Harry observe this omerta, or will he be tempted into saying something? He did respond to a shouted question a little while later on after the meeting. Someone shouted out asked how his father was, and he said he's really well. So there was some positive news too. But the key thing was that the meeting actually took place. As you said, 19 months, it's a very long time. An awful lot of turbulent water has gone under this particular royal bridge.
And do you think that we're at a point where the king can trust Harry to, in your words, zip it?
I'm not sure we've reached that point yet, but I think it's an ice-breaking moment. We'll see. I mean, he clearly wants to trust his son. You've got to remember, he had a very warm relationship with Prince Harry. Of his two sons, he was always closest to Harry, and that's tragically no longer exists, at least not in the way it did. I think because of his cancer treatment, because of everything else that's going on around him, the king would like nothing more than a proper reconciliation with his son. If nothing else, it would allow him to properly meet his two grandchildren living in California, who he's barely seen.
Now, Richard Eden, I know you'll be wanting to have your two penneth, and I don't think anybody will be surprised to know that you've written for Mail Plus today that you think this was the wrong move for King Charles.
Well, look, obviously I can understand a father wanting to meet his son. I mean, you know, who wouldn't? The problem is he's not just a father, he is our head of state, and I think Harry and Meghan are bad for the royal family. And I appreciate Richard's points in his article today about that it's for the benefit of the monarchy in the long term, but respectfully I have to disagree with that, because I think Harry and Meghan are bad news, and we've seen time and time again that they can't be trusted, they exploit their royal connections, and I don't think it's being paranoid to say that they want to be the alternative royal family. They want to replace Prince William and Katherine as the principal royals, and they undermine them. I mean, just look at this week. I mean, this was a week full of engagements, as we mentioned, for William and Katherine, and Harry has been competing with that, and also just doing things like, you know, announcing a donation to a charity and stuff like that.
Well, we'll get on to that.
Undermining, and I think it really is not in the long-term interests of our monarchy.
I don't think, does it really make sense to say that they want to be the principal royals when they made a very, very strong statement about stepping back from royal life?
Well, they didn't want to quit royal life. They did it because they were told to, because they wanted to make money. What they wanted to do ideally was combine making money with carrying out royal duties. And what we've seen this week from Harry is an attempt at that. It's been like a sort of royal week of engagements, you know, with a succession of things. He always comes back, for example, to attend the Well-Child Awards.
Well, he's a patron, isn't he?
Yeah, and this year he's combined it with various other engagements. So it has appeared like a sort of royal week.
Interesting.
And so I just think it's dangerous, basically.
So Richard touched on your piece in the Mail today, and the significance you think it has for the Windsors. What did you say?
Well, I just think that I accept everything that Richard says, but I think having a split royal family, which is what we have at the moment, with the Prince across the water, is not good for long-term stability. It obviously has echoes of what happened with King George VI and his brother, the Duke of Windsor, who abandoned the throne, as we all know, and who carried out quasi-royal engagements over the next sort of 19 years or so, which thankfully did not impinge too much on the working of the House of Windsor here. But Harry was, and perhaps still is, a popular young man in certain parts of the world. And I think Charles recognises that popularity could be a problem further down the road unless he is somehow corralled within the royal system.
And turns it into a benefit.
It has to be for the benefit of the whole family as a whole.
I think that we can predict that there will be some angry comments about, though there are people who firmly believe that the king should never talk to Harry again. But I think that what you're saying is you can be against what Prince Harry has done, but see the importance of mending those fences for the monarchy as a whole.
I accept that. I think he, as Richard said, he's a twin role, but the other element of this that has me thought, he's a father, he's a monarch, he's also a Christian. And there's a great deal about forgiveness, and bringing Harry back in will be a very noble act, but it would also be a very Christian act.
I totally agree that forgiveness is important, but it must be accompanied by repentance. And we haven't heard anything. So before we had Harry demanding apologies, he literally said this in loads of TV interviews, I want apology for this, for that. That didn't come, so he's kind of settled for not getting that. but there hasn't been any repentance from him at all.
It would be very interesting to know, and thus far we don't, whether Harry actually stood in front of his father and said, "I'm sorry, Papa." I bet he didn't, but it would be interesting to know.
Yeah, there doesn't ever seem to be much conciliatory tone from Harry. There's never a moment where he's like, maybe I shouldn't have said this or done that on that day.
I quite agree, and in fact, there was stuff in the British newspapers at the weekend from Harry's team, in which he was the team were basically saying, well, look, Harry has made this grand gesture, it's on you. Again, the language was all wrong. It was shouty, it was demanding.
Yeah.
It again stressed that Harry was in the right and the rest of them were in the wrong. It won't have gone down well, and I suspect it played a part in why Prince William took absolutely no interest in this whatsoever.
It's interesting, isn't it, though, that there does seem to have been this concerted PR push from Harry's side, and we're even seeing, pictures of like the old Harry, like smiling pictures. Like, do you think that this? What do you think of this? Is it deliberate? Is there a strategy at play?
Well, look at Harry this week. I mean, he looks like the cat who's got the cream. Smiling, and he's achieved what he wanted, and it does seem to have been part of this concerted PR drive. I mean, let's think back. We discussed that meeting between the King and Queen's Communications Secretary, Tobin Andre, and Harry and Meghan's newly appointed communications chief, Meredith Maines. She flew over from LA specifically for these meetings. And so it is part of this drive. They know what they want. And I'm afraid to say, I think there's a lot more to come.
It's interesting, you touched on the big cash donation that Harry made this week. What were your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so what this was Prince Harry announced that he'd given £1.1 million to BBC Children in Need, and it was particular for projects in Nottingham. It was the scene of Meghan's first public engagement after they announced their engagement, that she met, and it's to do with young people, stopping them getting involved in gangs in a poor area of Nottingham. So very worthwhile project, very generous, but really what people have said to me, really crass to announce the amount. So often over the years you'll hear that the royal family have made a private donation, but they never say how much. To actually announce it just seems, sorry to be cynical, but it's almost like a sort of quite transparent bid for popularity.
Do you agree with that? Is this part of the PR push, Richard?
I agree completely. I thought it was extremely vulgar to specify the amount. It's a huge amount, make no mistake, and it's incredibly generous. But it's taken as read that the royals will be generous with their donations. The King, Prince William, and other members of the royal family have donated to charity for many, many years, but they do it quietly, they do it unobtrusively. The charities are grateful, but the amounts are never spelled out. Harry chose to issue a statement, if you like, about how much he'd given.
I can't help but hark back to the infamous Oprah interview where he talked about how difficult money was, so it's like, can't be that bad.
Well, that's true. I mean, he's got a spare £1.1 million in small change that he can give away to a charity. But, it's not that long ago that he was worried about how he was going to pay for their lavish lifestyle.
Well, it's good that a charity's getting some money anyway. We always like to see that. Now, we've touched on William. No one was expecting William to join any happy reunion, were they?
Not really.
No.
I mean, I think that is going to be an extremely long time coming before the two brothers sit down again. I suspect it's part of Harry's game plan that eventually they will be reconciled, but William shows no interest in it, and I think with very good reason. I mean, Harry betrayed every royal promise that is made within the House of Windsor. You don't talk about family matters. And Harry did all that in his memoir and on television. And I think both William and Katherine felt utterly betrayed by Prince Harry.
Can you see any scenario, Richard Eden, in which William will meet Harry? What would it have to take for him to be trusting again?
Yes, I could, because I think William can be magnanimous as well, like his father, but he needs to see repentance. I think if Harry begs forgiveness and says, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have betrayed our confidences. I shouldn't have, traduced your wife and insulted her in my book and repeated things which she wasn't able to answer back. She wasn't able to respond. And if that was a genuine apology, then I think he would forgive him. But I haven't seen any sign of that. I think Harry thinks he did the right thing and has nothing to apologise for.
It's interesting, isn't it? I wondered if a moment for reconciliation might be the sad occasion of the Duchess of Kent's funeral, but he's not going to be there.
No, apparently not. I mean, that would have seemed like an ideal opportunity. But it's not just William who has reservations about Prince Harry. As we learned from the Paul Burrell book, which the Mail had serialised, when Harry arrived to pay his respects at Balmoral Castle after the death of Queen Elizabeth, he was met with frosty, icy silence from those members of the royal family were there. They don't trust him, full stop, period. And I suspect that William is not alone and that the wider royal family would have been uncomfortable about seeing Harry at the Duchess of Kent's funeral.
I should say it's a big deal that Harry has not stayed for that, because obviously you might remember that he happened to be here with Meghan at the time of Queen Elizabeth's death, and so they stayed for her funeral. And the Duchess of Kent's funeral is a big historic event because it's at Westminster Cathedral. It's the first Roman Catholic royal funeral of modern times. The first time a monarch will have been there, and all the royal family will be there. So it will be notable.
And I think it's worth pointing out that the Duchess of Kent was the sole member of the royal family who stood by Harry's mother. He stood by Diana and continued to support her when others fell out with her.
I think it's because Harry's got what he wanted now. He's got that meeting, he's got the headlines, and so he's back to LA.
The funeral service for the Duchess of Kent was held at Westminster Cathedral in September and was attended by the King and other senior royals. However, one particular exchange on the steps of the cathedral caught the attention of our panel.
It was so, do you know what? It was so moving, but also quite joyful as well, because she was such a wonderful lady who lived such a good and positive life. And so there were, the Westminster Cathedral was, filled with people who just were so proud of their association with her. And as the Archbishop of Westminster came up to me and spoke to me afterwards, because obviously it was a Catholic funeral, requiem mass, a funeral service, which is the first time they've ever had a royal one at the cathedral in its history, and the first time I think in 300 years that a British monarch has attended one. And I think that's a sign of how such high regard everyone held Katherine in. And he was kind of almost laughing as he was talking about it, which may sound inappropriate, but wasn't. He was saying, I remember going on a pilgrimage to Lourdes with her, where she was helping in a hospital with some really sad cases and some terribly ill people. She was doing the mopping out. And afterwards we sat on the steps and had an ice cream and we chatted to the passers-by. And that was her in a nutshell. Very good and very kind and very diligent, but also very fun as well. And obviously it was one of I would say, the biggest gathering we've seen of the wider royal family since Queen Elizabeth II's funeral. So for royal watchers, it was fascinating as well.
Oh yes.
But I think as we will go on to discuss, and I really don't want to take away from the importance of it being the Duchess of Kent's funeral. But the body language and the
maybe others did.
The watching on the outside, when people were waiting outside after the funeral was fascinating.
Well, to start that off, there was lots of comments about one particular piece of footage where some were claiming that William seemed to not want to talk to the King. Do you buy that?
No, because there's another piece of footage about 2 seconds before that where they were chatting. And don't forget, it is. I'm sure we'll go into the Yorks in a minute. The Yorks aside, who were treating it almost like a cocktail party. It was a funeral and people were kind of standing there, as you do, after these things, muttering things again, wasn't that a lovely, service? They're not laughing and joking and chattering. And there was actually a particularly lovely moment where the King turned before he got into the State Bentley, and I captured it on video, said something to the Princess of Wales, and she big smile came over, gave him a kiss on the cheeks and curtsied. So I can see why people would have drawn that conclusion from that one single piece of footage. but there is so much more footage that makes up what was going on outside.
But do you think, Richard, if William had any cause to be annoyed, it would have been justified?
Yes, I think in the case of his uncle, Prince Andrew. Because, you know, we're at that difficult stage with Andrew where, yes, it's appropriate that he should be invited to a funeral of one of his relations. But I do wish the king had said to him beforehand, look, can you just stay inside while we're all outside? Because there he is at the front of the royal family, front and centre, clearly loving it. He seems to be sort of making the most of it, looking very cock-a-hoop and proud. And then there's sort of some laughter and...
Well, let's look at that video now. We do have footage from where Prince William seemed not very keen at all to talk to his uncle Andrew. Play that for you now. Oh, Rebecca, that's cringe, isn't it?
So as a journalist, although I'm at a funeral, I'm allowed to use my phone to record things. And at first we couldn't see the rest of the royal family because the Kents were there as the Duchess's coffin was very carefully laid in the royal hearse. And then they kind of moved away. And we were all filming on our phones. And when they all eventually left, we kind of all put our phones down. We all looked at each other and went, oh my goodness. Because it was quite extraordinary. And you can see Andrew, and I'm to try and be charitable, maybe he was feeling a little bit awkward, I don't know, you know, knowing that all eyes will be on him, but trying to make conversation with William.
But he sort of like made sure he was at the front.
Yeah, William could not have been less interested in making conversation with him. You know, the very slight turn of the head, the kind of muttering out one side of his mouth, and then just turning back. And I could see William kind of rocking on his heels, and he kind of was, you know, nervously rubbing under his nose. You could just see, you really felt for him, how awkward it was. But there was also another part which I caught on my video of Sarah, Duchess of York, kind of trying to get their attention, and in the end William and Katherine kind of turned around and said something to her. But you know those situations where they're turning to talk but their bodies are still very much facing forward. Now I'm not a big fan, I'll be honest, sorry, of all these body language experts, but they were probably worth their weight in gold on that day, I have to say.
It's so interesting, Richard, even if William, you know, is in private happy to talk to his uncle, he's aware that people like Rebecca are out there filming and how it might look in isolation on video.
Well, exactly. So that's why, you know, he doesn't want to talk to him, and he's probably thinking, you know, why is he so prominent at this event? And that's a legitimate question. But I think, I mean, who knows? Perhaps Andrew had been asked to, you know, stay in the background and ignores that. But, you know, it did look like he was trying to make the most of it, to say, I'm still here, I'm at events. And remember, you know, this is at a time when, you know, Peter Mandelson has just been sacked as our ambassador to Washington because of his links to Epstein. So for goodness sake, Andrew,
and then you've
stay in the background.
And then you've got Fergie sort of like really flapping, waving, trying to get the attention of the king.
Well, I mean, to be fair to Sarah, that's her personality. She's very outgoing and always keen to be friendly. But in those circumstances, yeah, it didn't look great.
And then obviously, and then Andrew was sort of like made to left waiting while she gave all these lengthy goodbyes.
So I was watching this very carefully. So she did at one point, yeah, she was waving very over enthusiastically. I wrote a big piece about it in the Mail, and then kind of suddenly bobbed a curtsy. It just, I know what you mean about her personality, and she is like that. She is like a overexcited Labrador puppy, but there's just a time and a place, and I don't think a funeral of a much loved member of the royal family, you know, is that time or place. And there was a bit where she was so busy kind of almost enjoying herself, chatting to all the clerics and other family members. And Andrew kind of walked off down the side because for once he was part of the royal convoy, and that was just, you know, not because he was given special treatment, but it's just easier to get them all in and out together with a police convoy. And he kind of said something to, you know, Duchess of Edinburgh, who was there on her own because Edward's away, and then said something to Princess Anne, but then realised Sarah wasn't with him. And I kind of watched him, he was turning around, he didn't really know what to do with himself, and he was kind of flapping at his morning coat kind of backwards and was a bit like, where is she? Is she going to come? Eventually, I think she got the message and hurried up to to kind of catch up with them and go back to the cars. But as a teenager would say, it was orcs.
Exactly. What do you think, Richard? Do you think it's just signs of this sort of like effervescent, sort of like excited Labrador personality, or do you think the Yorks were using this as some sort of publicity stunt, as some cynics might suggest?
Yeah, I did get the impression that Andrew was very pleased to be there and wanted to make the most of it, which is not a good look. And it's hard for Prince William. I mean, the other thing that struck me from the service was, how obviously we know how old Queen Elizabeth's cousins are, but there were several cousins who are now in wheelchairs, such as Prince Michael of Kent. And it did strike me, you've got that older generation now, and, it's a difficult one for Prince William.
In October, the King and Queen undertook an historic state visit to the Holy See, aka the Vatican. The visit was notable for being the first time a British monarch prayed publicly with a pope in over 500 years, proving once again not only the King's love of tradition, but his love of breaking it. Indeed, as we are recording, the King is praying with the Pope in the Vatican. It's a busy week as he and the Queen are in Rome, and we're hoping that Rebecca English will be back next week to tell us all about it. She's right there alongside them, as one would expect. Now, he has made history during the state visit, hasn't he?
Yeah, I mean, he's taken on a new title. He and the Pope have exchanged titles. He's now called something called confrater, which is, doesn't change anything to do with his position in the Church of England, but it's unquestionably a sign of a sort of thawing of relations between the two churches. And of course, the Church of England famously started because Henry VIII wanted to get divorced way back in the 16th century. And this is, a real landmark moment, which of course stands to be eclipsed by domestic matters involving his younger brother. But we should not let that get in the way of the fact this is a really big step in sort of multi-faith ecumenical history of the monarchy and the Church of England.
It's fascinating. Now, Richard Kay, obviously there was a state visit to Italy, I think some 40 years ago, where there were similar plans. What can you remember?
It wasn't a state visit. It was Charles, then the Prince of Wales, and the Princess of Wales, Princess Diana. They were guests of Pope John Paul II at the Vatican, and there was huge controversy about this visit, because from the get-go, the King, the Prince of Wales, as he then was, wanted to take part in a public mass with the Pope. And the Pope himself, or the Vatican, decided that would not be appropriate. But what he did do was invite the Prince and Princess to pray privately with him at the Holy See. And there was pushback on that, and in the end, it was sort of a typical palace fudge. It was announced that the King had decided, on reflection, that probably he wouldn't pray with the Pope, but he would go and see him. So he and Diana went to see the Pope, but there was no element of prayer. In fact, there was uproar over here at the time. People like the Protestant firebrand from Northern Ireland, the Reverend Ian Paisley, and others on the extreme fringes of the Protestant faith took grave exception to the idea of a future governor of the Church of England getting down on his knees with the head of the Catholic Church.
Right, here we go, buckle up. This is the sequence of events that engulfed the Duke of York in scandal up to his eyeballs from the beginning of the year to mid-October. In January, we learned of the Play Some More Soon email sent by Andrew to convicted child trafficker Jeffrey Epstein in February 2011. Proving that Andrew lied in his 2019 Newsnight interview. In April, Virginia Giuffre, who accused Andrew of sexual battery, a claim he denies, commits suicide in her farm in Australia. In September, Sarah Ferguson's steadfast friend, in quotes, email to Jeffrey Epstein is published, losing her several charitable leadership roles. In October, Andrew's In This Together email to Epstein is published. This collection of calamities brought our very own Richard Eden to make the following vociferous demand.
Well, I'm sick of people at the palace sort of suggesting that not much can be done, because it can and it should be done. To give you just a few examples, he's still the Duke of York. He has the title. That could be stripped, pretty straightforward way. But more importantly than that, he is still legally able to represent our head of state, our king, as a councillor of state. The king has done something already where he extended the members to include Prince Edward and Princess Anne. So the idea was that Harry or Andrew would never need to be used. But that's not good enough. You know, that he could easily just put something through Parliament, stripping Andrew, and I would say strip Harry too, of that role. He could do that. And also, crucially, Prince Andrew loves being a member of our highest order of chivalry, the Order of the Garter. We know how much he loves it because in this disgusting email, he ended it by including the initials KG, Knight of the Garter. Now, they've come to a compromise where he doesn't parade with the others at Garter Day, but he still goes to the lunch and, for all we know, wears his robes. Strip him of it immediately.
Now, the day after Richard made his ultimatum, Prince Andrew voluntarily gave up his conferred titles. But then, on October 19th, the Mail on Sunday breaks the story that back in 2011, Prince Andrew asked his taxpayer-funded personal protection officer to dig up dirt on Virginia Giuffre, prompting Richard Edron to make an even more extraordinary stipulation. This one from Royal Reacts. Richard wants his princehood to be taken away by letters patent.
Here are some of the problems that still need addressing. First up, the titles. He has agreed not to use the title of the Duke of York and the Earl of Inverness and Baron Killyleagh, or the KG after his name that denotes membership of the Order of the Garter. But the dukedom has not been formally removed. Now, the Member of Parliament for York wants the government to change the law to allow the title to be taken away completely. Gallingly, Andrew remains 8th in line to the throne. Reports have suggested that Parliament could remove him, but they would need consent from the Commonwealth countries where Charles is king. I can't see any of them objecting. What's more, he is still a Councillor of State, which is one of the senior royals who can act for the king, theoretically. Why that hasn't been fixed is baffling. As for the title Prince, why not get on with that too? All it would take is a simple letter from the king. That should be done.
Then, 10 days after Richard laid out the punishment and the process, King Charles announced he was going to do just that, de-prince his own brother. The very next day, we brought you a special live episode of Palace Confidential with renowned author and journalist Robert Hardman. This is really seismic, isn't it?
Yeah, this is, it genuinely is unprecedented. I mean, we'll get down into some of the detail in a minute, but for the king to take away the birthright of his brother, to de-prince him, if you like, to take away these honours.
Well,
I mean,
it was just last week that you and I were sort of saying we can't imagine that would happen.
No, I didn't. I mean, I'm genuinely surprised because what you're effectively doing is you're putting Andrew on a par with enemies of the state. I mean, the last people to have these things removed were actually traitors, proper bona fide traitors, and that's where he's being put. So it is an extraordinary response. I think this is it's clearly the most significant decision the king has taken as king, but I think for the monarchy, we really need to go back to 1992 and the Annus Horribilis, as the Queen called it, to find a sort of equally significant moment, because this is not just a case of the royal family kind of knuckling down and getting on with it and hoping it goes away, or standing by existing tradition and convention. They've changed the rules. They have changed. There's constitutional innovation going on here to resolve a family problem.
But it feels, from the outside looking in, rather knee-jerk for such a big thing. But is that the case? What do you think has been the motivation for the king to finally make this, as you say, unprecedented push?
Well, I think a number of factors. It has everything to do with Prince Andrew and the Jeffrey Epstein saga. It's a sort of one thing after another. So it's hard to pinpoint one exact thing. But I think if we're looking for a kind of game-changing moment, I think actually it's our colleagues at the Mail on Sunday and that revelation, that email that showed that Andrew's alleged, his excuse, his alibi, if you like, saying that he'd severed all links with Jeffrey Epstein in 2010. Well, that's not the case. Now, if that's not true, because what the Mail on Sunday showed was that there they were chatting away by email the following year, and that creepy line about, let's play again soon.
I know.
That it essentially calls into question everything else that he's said. And then when you add in all the other stuff like his proximity to alleged Chinese spies, other rows to do with money, and also the whole, the fact that everything he's doing, just by existing, he's upstaging all the good work of the monarchy. I think the king just decided, right, we've got to do something.
Yeah.
That process started a few weeks ago. We had that stopgap announcement 2 weeks ago today when it was said he will no longer use his titles. That was a sort of buying time thing. I don't think what happened last night, I don't think this new development is as an immediate response to sort of public outcry. I think it's been in the pipeline because these are complicated issues.
Yeah.
I mean, as I said, we'll get onto the details, but when you look at those details, that requires a lot of work sorting that out.
What do you think about the fact that there's no comment from Andrew here? Sometimes there is, sometimes there isn't. It doesn't always go that well, as we've just discussed, but what can we read into the silence there?
I think we read into that he's taken this. There's not going to be any pushback. I mean, historically, every time Andrew had to sort of take some medicine for, he was pushed back on his days as a trade envoy, or we couldn't do this or we couldn't do that. It would normally unravel after a while. One of his favourite tactics would be to go around to see the Queen for tea on a Sunday when there'd be no officials there, and basically lean on her to sort of, undo whatever had been decided the week before.
Charm mummy.
To say, oh look, I think they've got it all wrong, and I mean the Queen, to be fair, she had to do some very tough things. I mean, I think when she effectively, stripped him of his military titles and his HRH and all that back in after his disastrous Newsnight interview, that was very, very painful for her. But clearly things had to go a good deal further, and now they have.
This sentence in the statement from the King is quite interesting. These censures are deemed necessary, notwithstanding the fact that he continues to deny the allegations against him. What can we read into that about what the palace thinks?
Well, firstly, the word censures. I mean, it's not these changes or these decisions. It's censures. It's essentially saying it's a sort of rather royal word for punishment.
Yeah.
And what it's saying is, I mean, the king is the fountain of justice. Let's remember, he is essentially, the law is done in his name. So innocent till proved guilty. He has to stand by that. He can't sort of suddenly, make decisions on someone's guilt or innocence. However, what that says very clearly is, well, he says it, that's what he says.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say there's any kind of resounding family support there.
I remember in the aftermath of the Newsnight interview with Emily Maitlis, there was a lot of outcry that Prince Andrew said nothing about Epstein's victims. So I thought it was really significant that in the statement from the King, they talk about the importance of the victims. Do you think that Camilla's work in this sort of areas against, campaigning for domestic violence charities, would she have been involved in that part of the statement?
I don't think she would have been. Well, I don't think she was involved in the decisions. I don't think that she's sort of been in any way egging on the King to this. But she would clearly been consulted over that wording, and she is absolutely passionate. And I've been to some of the events she's organised. Her campaign against domestic violence and violence against women, sexual violence. It's heartfelt. It's been going on a long time. It's very powerful. She did that documentary not so long ago, looking at that work. It's something just by the very nature of that sort of campaigning. Most of it happens below the radar. We don't see it because she's going to places that you can't take cameras in because these people are so traumatized.
Well,
but she really believes in it. So I think very, very important, those two words in there, their majesties, not his majesty, their majesties in the statement shows that she's right behind what the King's doing.
And indeed, obviously, the Duchess of Edinburgh.
And the Duchess of
Sophie does a lot of work with sexual violence victims.
She was out in the Congo recently doing that.
So I just think it must be just have been so uncomfortable for them to be part of a family where Andrew paid a woman who says she was a victim, and he's close.
Who he'd never met.
Well, apparently not, and who is clearly great friends with people who are convicted of sex trafficking.
Yeah, I mean, everything about it is excruciating, and then I mean, I know we talk sometimes about the optics, but on those rare occasions when we have seen now Andrew, I must stop trying to call him the Duke of York or the ex-Duke of York. On those occasions we have
Windsor.
seen Mr. Well, there is actually, interestingly, there is a debate. Is he Mr.? He does still have substantive military rank.
We'll get onto the
We'll get onto that.
Yeah.
But the fact is, when we have seen him, as most recently at the funeral of the Duchess of Kent, there you just see someone who is completely sort of tin-eared, lack of any self-awareness. I mean, it's a funeral. He's the embarrassing sort of pariah. He's the ostracised. He's sort of there under sufferance. And what's he doing?
Seemed like a big day out for Andrew.
Bouncing up and down. Let's go and share a joke with the Prince of Wales. I'll just go and have a word with the King. You can see everyone is sort of going, oh no, it's the mad uncle.
Exactly.
And I think when people see those sort of moments, when they see him on those rare occasions, like when he turns up at Easter, although that's not going to happen anymore, I'm quite sure he will not be allowed to come to Easter with the family Easter next year. But
steady on. We've got Christmas to get through yet.
Well, we won't see him at that. No, I mean, this is it. I mean, to begin with, he was sort of, way back when, suddenly told, right, you're not going on the balcony anymore. And he took that very badly. Then it's right, it's family occasions only. But don't forget, he's still there. He's at the coronation, wearing his garter robes, but not on the balcony. And gradually, all those things that he loves have dwindled away. And now, I mean, he really is, I mean, as the Mail says on its front page today, banished. And that's what he is.
In November, we watched Prince William bring his Earthshot Prize to Brazil to coincide with the COP30 World Leaders Summit. And guess who was right there, right next to him again? This week, Prince William has been in Rio de Janeiro in Brazil for a big environmental trip, promoting his Earthshot Prize, of course, and speaking at the COP30 Summit. Prince of Wales started the trip with a cable car ride up Sugarloaf Mountain before playing beach volleyball on the iconic Copacabana beach with Olympic star Carolina Solberg. Continuing the sporty streak, he then played against local children and Brazilian football legend Cafu in Maracana Stadium, where he scored a penalty. Well done, Wills. The next day, William continued to be a hit with the crowds as he held a baby during a walkabout on Paqueta Island and joked with his family that they mustn't drop him. Good advice. The prince was then taken on an eco tour of the mangrove swamp, where he crouched down in the mud to help plant a tree. He later refused a hand wipe, instead washing his hands in the river. Of course, following Prince William in Rio is the Daily Mail's royal editor, Rebecca English. Of course she's there, and here is her analysis of his visit so far.
Hello from iconic Copacabana Beach in Rio, where I'm with Prince William as he undertakes 3 days of engagements in the city ahead of his Earthshot Prize Awards. Now, the one thing that's really struck me over the last few days is how confident and laser focused William appears to be. He seems to have managed to put aside all of the recent royal scandal involving his uncle Andrew back in the UK, and he's really determined to make the most of his time here in Latin America. I think what it boils down to is there's very little that inspires Prince William more than environmental issues. It's why he set up his Earthshot Prize 5 years ago in the first place. And as he said to me this week, he's been really buoyed by the enthusiasm of the Brazilian people for this issue that he holds so close to his heart. Now, something you may not realise when you see the photographs and the videos and reports from royal tours such as this is the level of planning goes into them. Kensington Palace and the British ambassador here in Brazil and her team have been working on these events over 3 days for the better part of a year. So William really hit the ground running. He barely had time for a shower and a change of clothes when he got off his overnight flight from London on Monday, headed straight up to Sugarloaf Mountain, where I was waiting along with other British and Brazilian journalists. He received a tour of the area. He saw the sights of the city along with the mayor, who also awarded him the key to the city. Now, that's a rare honour. It's only actually normally given to King Momo, who's the king of the carnival each year. And it was a sign, the mayor said to me, of how much faith they had placed in William and how proud they were of him coming here and bringing the Earthshot Prize to Rio. As he said to me, William now has the keys to the city. He's king for the next 72 hours. He can do exactly what he wants. So Monday's programme was all about setting the scene. It was a welcome to Rio. So as well as going up in the cable car to Sugarloaf Mountain, Prince William also went to one of Rio's most iconic football stadiums, where he took to the pitch along with local children and Brazil's most capped footballer ever, a gentleman called Katherine, for some drills on the pitch, and this really, I think, endeared him to the local population. But to cap that on Monday evening, he came down here to Copacabana Beach, where he played a game of beach volleyball. Now, these engagements aren't actually announced in advance for security reasons. Brazil in particular, as you may have been reading in the news, does have a crime problem and has been seeing some quite brutal clampdowns on criminal gangs in recent weeks that have proved particularly controversial. So we don't see the usual kind of crowds you would see on a royal visit because nobody knows about them in advance. But what's become very clear is as soon as people become aware that William's in here, you suddenly hear his name being chanted everywhere, the crowds are gathering, people are hanging around to watch him and to get a selfie of him, and William has taken real trouble when those crowds have gathered to make sure he meets and greets as many people as he can. On Tuesday, William was determined to put the focus back on environmental issues as he visited Paqueta Island, which was about a 40-minute boat ride out of Rio itself. It's an area of incredible natural beauty, but also importance. It's full of mangrove swamps that they are trying to reforest after terrible devastation to them. But again, what was really notable was the warmth of the welcome William received from the island people. Only 5,000 of them lived there, and it felt like pretty much most of them had come out to greet him. There were huge screams when he stepped off the boat, lots of hugs, lots of selfie, even a few royal fist bumps, and William also couldn't resist, probably as naturally for a father of three, of being given a baby for a photo call. Wednesday, of course, was all about Earthshot Prize, his landmark environmental awards designed to create a spirit of optimism around the climate change crisis. And I think it shows the star power of the royal family, but William in particular, of the calibre of people he was able to attract. The awards had a headline ceremony at which we had stars including Kylie Minogue and Shawn Mendes playing. They came here specially for it, and I think there's very few people that would be able to pick up the phone and get star power like that behind a cause they're passionate about. On Thursdays we're filming Palace Confidential. The attention turns to Belém, the gateway to the Amazon here in Brazil, where Prince William will be representing his father the King at the COP30 United Nations Climate Change Conference. It's the first time he's been asked to do this, and it's clear it's a responsibility he takes incredibly seriously. I think if you ask me what my takeaway from the last 3 days in Rio has been, is I think I've seen a slightly new side to Prince William. He's got a sense of clarity and a sense of purpose, and actually I would say a slight sense of steeliness he hasn't had before. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean that he has a very clear vision of what he wants to achieve as heir to the throne and future king. I think he's still working out the fine detail of how he's going to do that, how he's going to push boundaries within the remit of a constitutional monarchy, but he's incredibly positive and forward-looking. But it's also clear William has been doing a lot of thinking over the last year. Not surprising, I would say, given what's been happening to the royal family personally. And it's quite clear he wants to continue the monarchy's journey in the future at pace. He wants it to be as relevant and dynamic as possible. And I don't think he's going to be afraid to take risk along the way, which I think will make it a very interesting period for royal watchers like us.
Oh, Richard, that was a very poignant moment there, wasn't it, when William went to visit the Christ the Redeemer statue?
Yes, it really was. Harking back to obviously when his mother had been there in 1991, I think. So, very poignant moment and beautiful photographs. I must say I'm rather jealous of Rebecca being in Rio. We're here in rainy London.
Well, she also sent us a new iconic image from Christ the Redeemer, which our viewers can see on screen now. She sent it just to taunt us, you and me, back in grey London.
I think every tourist has to pose in front of the statue.
Is it the law?
Yeah, it must be.
It must be. Well, he's holding the Earthshot Prize days before the UN Climate Conference, COP30, where he will deliver a landmark speech. Now, what have you made of the environmental element of this trip? Was it good to combine the two?
Well, the Earthshot Prize is fantastic, I think. It's the sort of real sort of practical scheme that I think his grandpa, Prince Philip, would have loved. You know, Prince Philip helped set up the World Wildlife Fund back in the 1960s. And the Earthshot Prize is William's attempt to do something practical, you know, try and find solutions, you know, not just be lecturing people about what they're doing wrong, but say, what can we do to help?
Yeah.
Let's try and find solutions for things and things that will improve the environment for everyone. So I think it's a great scheme. I don't know if it's a great idea, though, to do it in Brazil. So the reason he's there is because it coincides with COP30, in the rainforest, actually. But these kind of political summits, they're very controversial. You know, for example, the leaders of the biggest or the most polluting nations, China, India, the USA, they're not taking part. There's always controversy around it, and all these leaders go there, they fly in on their private jets and lecture us all about, you know, not taking holidays or something. And so I'm not sure it's great for William to be associated with that, but he obviously thought it was a chance to publicise the prizes.
Well, and I think it's true what you say, that there's a lot of incredibly optimistic, pragmatic ingenuity going on with people competing for that Earthshot Prize. And so
Definitely.
maybe it's a great influence for him to be there and
yes, and
rally the cause.
Yeah, and the prize, they are very big prizes. You know, it's £1 million each. And so it's a great encouragement for people to come up with innovative schemes, and it needs big sponsors. So perhaps, you know, coinciding with COP30 means you're more likely to get big corporate sponsors, I suppose.
I mean, the air miles are unfortunate, but what can you do? There's always a cost, isn't there?
Yes, but it is a global scheme. I mean, that's the point of it. So it makes sense. Each year they've had the award ceremony in a different country, and that's part of the appeal.
Remember Prince Harry? Well, he sure wants you to. December saw him drag the British government through the courts yet again on the subject of who should pay for his security when he visits the UK. Spoiler alert, he thinks it should be you.
Just to recap, what happened when Harry and Meghan chose to quit royal duties and move to North America, first to Canada, then to the USA, their taxpayer-funded police protection on any return visits to Britain was ended, because the basis was this is available for for British royal family who need that protection. But
and it was ended, but if he gave 28 days notice, he could have it.
Yeah. So what ended was the automatic right. So at the moment, what they have is if they give due notice of when they plan to come, what they plan to do, it's then assessed. And any risks can be assessed and that type of thing. So they can still get it, but it's not automatic. For other members of the royal family, it's automatic that, it's there all the time, and obviously much more expensive. So that was ended. Anyway, Harry was very unhappy about this. He took legal action against His Majesty's government, against the Home Office. He said that proper procedures hadn't been followed and it shouldn't have been taken away from him. Well, anyway, so he lost the legal action, and then he appealed, and he also lost that appeal. And the reason he lost it was because the judges accepted that because they live abroad, it wasn't applicable. What Harry's point was, look, there's still all these threats against me, the life of myself, my wife, my kids could be in danger. And the judges said, sure, but that's not the issue. The issue is that you're no longer in Britain. So we can assess your threats when you come, but you've got to give due notice and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, Harry's been very unhappy about this, and he has made clear time and time again that this is what's preventing him coming back to Britain and bringing his children to meet their grandfather. And it's a big, big thing for Harry. So the latest development was he wrote to the new Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, and said, I want a review. We've had no review since we left Britain back in 2020. Well, anyway, this week's development is that a review is happening. So the government has allowed a new assessment to take place.
And why do you think that's the case?
Well, my goodness, that's why it's such a big thing.
Yeah.
Because nothing has changed.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're thinking, what has changed? Well, I think what has changed is that Harry and Meghan do intend to come back. Harry wants to live in Britain again.
Wow.
At least, I'm not saying permanently or anything, but I'm talking about spending much more time here and having some sort of resident status. On his last visit back in September, he spoke to friends, and I reported this at the time, about how eventually he would like both their children to be educated in Britain.
Yeah.
So, he talked about this with several people. It was to the singer Joss Stone as well, actually. He was really on his mind. So I think he loves life in California in many ways, but he's got old attachments here. He's involved with old charity patronages, and he's really keen for his kids to grow up here, have education. So that might not be for a few years, but his father is still being treated for cancer. And he wants to spend more time here. So
yes.
I think that's what this is about.
So you think this is the strongest indication yet that actually moves are afoot to sort of like reintroduce the Sussexes to Britain on a much more permanent basis?
I'll be honest, I've taken quite a bit of mockery about this because I wrote about a plot, an establishment plot.
That's right, yes, I remember,
to bring them back. And people were like, what's he talking about, establishment plot? And it was even given a name. So people involved called it Project Thor because they knew that relations between Harry and Meghan and the public and the royal family are very icy. So
yes.
the idea
I was going to say, it says THAW, not THOR,
no,
as in the Avengers. Yeah.
No Avengers.
Yeah.
THAW, to thaw things out and to warm up relations. So, do you remember Harry's last trip in September? It was a real PR offensive.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. He literally arrived and said, I'm handing over more than £1 million to children in need. He was really trying to get some positive publicity.
Yeah.
He was smiles all the way through. He met pre-arranged meeting with the King, all part of this PR offensive, to have a cup of tea and everything and discuss things. And then he went to Kiev with the British Home Secretary.
That's right, yes.
Foreign Secretary.
Gosh, a lot
Yvette
happens in a
Cooper.
few months, doesn't it?
Yeah. And it is all coordinated, and he's got establishment figures on side. So
interesting.
Yeah.
Now, a decision is to be made by a committee in January, I believe. So what happens then?
Well, if he is successful and they conclude that he should be given protection again, then I think we will see more of Harry and Meghan. Now, I'm horrified by this, genuinely, because I think it just opens a whole new can of worms. Look, this is Harry and Meghan who have attacked the royal family time and time again. They're completely unrepentant. They think they've done nothing wrong. They haven't apologised in private, as far as we know, definitely not in public. Harry still maintains that they're owed apologies from the royal family. So that they cause trouble and they're coming back. And I think there's a real possibility that they'll be establishing a sort of rival court. They'll be trying to get headlines. That week that Harry was back, he had tons of coverage. But if he comes back with Meghan and the children, there'll be loads of attention. There'll be no attention on the royals, proper royals who are carrying out engagements at that time.
Well, maybe he's planning to come back into the fold as a working royal.
Well, we certainly know they would like to, because that was their original request. They wanted to combine royal duties with making money. And Queen Elizabeth made clear that wasn't on. So, what sort of basis would they be coming back? So they'd be getting... Look, British taxpayers at the moment are really hard pressed. The Labour government's getting them to pay more in tax. People are quite angry about this already. So if we've all got to pay a lot more money to pay tax for Harry and Meghan to come back, I think people will be furious. And there's another really interesting angle to this. If they're granted that status, that VIP status that they need security in Britain, it looks as if that means they'll have this special, I can't even remember what the exact term is, but it's like sort of special protected person status abroad. And I think the convention is then that America will have to provide security. Well, we know that Harry and Meghan are spending literally millions on security in the States at the moment. So, could the American government and American taxpayers then have to pay for security for them too?
Well, the president won't like that.
No.
Now, a source has said that this review could be a reflection of improved relations between the monarch and his son. Do you think that's the case? But the king presumably isn't directly involved in the Home Office's decision.
No, so the King is not directly involved, but this committee which decides has his representative on it. It has a representative from the police and then from the Home Office, and they decide things between them. And it is quite secretive. That's something which Harry's been very unhappy about. But you would imagine that the monarch's opinion has quite a lot of sway. And I think the King is keen to see his grandchildren. I think he's keen to be reconciled with Harry as well. And I think this is a problem. I do hope that the views of William and Katherine are taken into account and the potential problems this can cause. You know, look down the line, what could happen? We could have eventually, you know, William becoming king, Katherine and William, you know, on the throne, and then you've got this rival court, well established, of Harry and Meghan back in Britain, you know, getting the headlines, causing trouble. I just think that could be a real nightmare.
And finally, the King made quite the announcement in mid-December, and our panel had this to say.
He gave a wonderful bulletin about his health battle and how he's powering through and making great strides to getting better. Rebecca wrote extensively about this, but you know, it was a very uplifting, encouraging pre-Christmas message, and he was very open, I thought, about the battles he's had, the diagnosis, and there was a sort of a hidden message there too about cancer and the need to get people examined. Rebecca, again, you did write quite eloquently about all that, and I thought that was a powerful aspect of what the King had to say.
And is that why he decided to give the speech? Do you have any insight on that?
Well, I think that's probably the reason why he decided to give the speech, because his treatment is changing in the new year. I mean, he's no longer going to be having quite as extensive weekly treatment. It's going to be reduced. But there wasn't another sort of hidden message in all this, slightly thinly disguised, I would argue. But there's been a lot of chatter around the royal family, the monarchy, over the last few months, with people speculating about what kind of monarch Prince William is going to make and what kind of changes he might be introducing when he gets his opportunity. And it was just a little reminder that the King say, hello, I'm still here.
Absolutely.
I'm not going anywhere. And while I'm king, we're going to do it my way. And I think that might just slap down one or two people who have been a little forward in their views.
Interesting. Rebecca, you did a last-minute episode of Palace Reacts on Friday, and you said that Charles would be happy if his speech encouraged even one person to book a cancer screening. Do you happen to know whether or not that's happened? What has the reaction been in general?
It was a brilliant reaction, genuinely. The people, organisations like Cancer Research UK have said that doing it in the way he did, and it might be worth explaining, instead of kind of quite a boring kind of formal statement by Buckingham Palace, he decided to do a video message for Stand Up to Cancer, which was a big night of highlighting issues around the disease on Channel 4. And that's quite revolutionary for Charles anyway. That's not something he's done a lot of. And they wanted to highlight the importance of getting screened for breast, cervical and bowel cancer, because those rates are particularly worrying in the UK. 9 million people miss their screening opportunities every year. So that's what the message he wanted to get out. It was a personal message about him, but he wanted it to be a much bigger message to the British people. And the Cancer Research Charity told us within kind of hours of the King's message going up, 100,000 people plus had gone straight onto the website. They're introducing a new checker system, their online tool, and you can tell whether you're eligible for screening. So they were seeing a very tangible result as a direct result of his message. So I know he was told about that at the weekend and was hugely, hugely encouraged by it.
And that was the year that was. Please allow me to thank you all for watching and listening, subscribing and liking and commenting on all our royal content across 2025. It really means the world to us. We're genuinely so proud to bring you the very best royal content from the very best royal experts in the world. That's what I said, in the world, twice weekly from the Daily Mail HQ in London. So to all of you, please allow me to hope you had a very Merry Christmas, and we wish you a safe, peaceful and prosperous 2026. See you all in the new year. Bye for now.